Hi everyone, and welcome to the first ever stream from our brand new studio. Uh, this is a wonderful day that we get to spend with all of you. Happy Pride Month, everyone, and I hope your entire June and summer is going well so far. If you have any questions during the stream, please feel free to comment those in the chat as we're going along today. We're here to answer any Pride Month questions, any questions about the LGBTQ community, and all sorts of different stuff. So please comment those questions. Also, while we're going through here today, super chats for this live stream are available. So all you have to do is where you're commenting in a chat room, just hit the little $sign there, and you'll be able to give us a super chat and help us provide even more and better LGBTQ education in the future. So every dollar that we get today helps us make LGBTQ education available every single week, all year round. So I will tell you in a little bit in advance that YouTube has not been, YouTube has sponsored our channel this month again, with a highlight on their channel as well as in their campaigns. But the system of YouTube has not been so friendly to us this month. So our biggest month of the year is not that big yet. So we're kind of freaking out behind the scenes, figuring out. Because June pays for the entire year of production for our show to happen. So if it doesn't go well, we're kind of freaking out that we're not going to be able to actually afford a TV show for that. Holy shit. And it comes and it starts. All right. Robin the Oak, back at it again at Krispy Kreme. Okay. That's a little odd. Awesome. Thank you so much for the $20 donation. That is greatly appreciated. Thank you. So I just wanted to put that out there, that super chats are available. So thank you, Robin in the Oak, for your amazing super chat. So let's get to some questions here. All right. Hi, I can't stay for long, but I wish you all the beautiful Pride Month and summer. Happy Pride. Everyone's basically saying Happy Pride Month, so that's awesome. We love that. Hi, Matt. Who else is going to their first ever Pride event this month? There's a lot of people in our in our general audience that go to their first ever Pride months or Pride events after hanging out here on online, and so we're super excited because we have a lot of tips on our website here to help you go to your first ever Pride event. So we have episodes on how to make friends at your first ever Pride event, like so many different tips on how to make friends, how to where to navigate in your first ever Pride event, to find people that you can interact with, to find your niche in the community, to find people that you can get along well with. For instance, you can go into a booth, and at these booths, and inside of these people's tents for the vendors and stuff, they like to talk about their organization, and so you can sort of make friends with other people that are there to learn as well. And meanwhile, the icebreaker of the conversation is the vendor themselves, and you get to talk to the vendor about their organization, but that becomes the icebreaker into the conversation of making friends with someone else that's there too. So we have a lot of tips on that, and we have tips on, oh my god, so many different things. This month we put out, this week I should say, we put out a new episode on a Pride event guidebook that you can actually download for free, or on our website, pbrmerchstore.com, right there. You can download that for a couple dollars over PBR Merch Store, but on our other website for free if you want. That way you can have an entire guide for how to do, how to go to events, how to plan for it, how to get there. All sorts of different tips you get to have in that episode. It's a full masterclass video plus a downloadable resource. So tons of different tips there. It's such a nice way that we get to help the community in return, because you guys help us so much. And you helped me go to my first ever Pride event. So really helping the community and helping some other kids out there that were just like me. I mean, I went to my first ever Pride event without any of these tips, and so I'm so happy and excited that we get to do that. That every year when we get to help people go to their first ever Prides. So, how are you guys? Crazy busy, because we moved in the past 2 weeks here. We moved 120 miles away from our old studio, and as you can see, this is a brand new studio behind me. I mean, I wish I could show you all of it, but it's literally that's our teleprompter over there for our camera. That way, I get to read the script for every episode. But behind me is literally the set for the show, the new set that we just got done building. With brand new lights, brand new everything. The camera is still the old camera, but behind me is literally this rack behind me is just equipment on equipment. So that's all the equipment for the show that we get to use every single week. So I'm excited to have a new studio, a new room that we're in. It is very cramped. I will say that. We had to plan this out for months because of how small this room is. But I think it looks, it's going to look great. Our first episode that we're going to be filming in this studio is actually an episode about U-Haul. Because we had such a terrible experience getting a U-Haul rented truck to get all this equipment 120 miles here. We had such a horrible time in that we decided to actually make our first episode recorded here about them. So, and we're far from alone in that assessment of U-Haul. So, we're planning on doing an entire series of episodes on moving tips and how to plan for your first ever apartment or house together with someone. So it's going to be a really cool series, but that series is going to start off with you all. So that's cool. New setup looks great. Thank you. I'm hoping it looks just as great over there when we start recording over there. This is like the live stream setup and the interview setup, and then that's the actual show setup. So I mean, there's a lot of work to do. And, Michael's office is done. My office is 99% done or so, I would say. We still have a little bit of work to do, but there's always tweaks to go. Our bedroom is in shambles right now. I'm sleeping on the couch right now, and she's sleeping on a chair because we're just, super, super busy, and the living room is almost done. It's so close to being done. We're so excited. And then the kitchen is all done. So we literally built out this entire apartment in about 4 days. We've only had this apartment for what? No, 8. We've had the apartment for 8 days now. So it's been about a week. But it's so much work. We had to first come in here and add all of our security measures. I can't even talk about all the security stuff we added, just because there's that one bad apple out there who's like, hey, let's test your systems. No, let's not test our systems. You wouldn't want to do that. You'd die. So there's a lot of security in this building right now. But that's just because we had to, because people are horrible on the internet sometimes. And certain people don't like what we do for a living. So, all right. So let's get to some more questions. Do you guys have any? Do any of you guys have a crush? Someone you know, celeb, fictional character? Because mine is Cedric Diggory from Harry Potter. I have a crush. It's Michael. But that's my boyfriend. What is it? We are 9 or 10 days away from our 1 year anniversary. So that's exciting. And I talked about him quite heavily in our other episodes. Have you ever had a dream and now have a crush on someone in that dream? Yeah. I had a dream about Michael, and, here I am. Also, I had, before I met Michael, I had celebrity crushes, definitely. Troye Sivan, Grayson Chance, yeah. You get it. Alright, so, question. Just me, or do other people have crushes on their imaginary friends? I don't know if I ever had a crush on an imaginary friend. That's an interesting question. Charlie from Heartstopper. Okay, fine. I will admit, they are kind of cute. That's a cute couple, though. Netflix casted them well. I will say that. Netflix knew their audience, and they're like, let's cast 2, near perfect twins for our show. And, yeah. That was kind of telling. Hi, everyone, and welcome. No. Alright. So, does anyone have any Pride Month questions or Pride event questions? We're going to be, if you're not aware, happy early 1 year anniversary. Oh, thank you. That's awesome. We appreciate that. Michael's at work right now, and I live stream while he's at work. So he's not going to be on today's stream. I'm hoping to get him on a future stream. But right now, things are so busy around the house that every night we're literally going out and buying stuff. Like tonight we have to go out and buy carpet because the studio needs an area rug just so it's not freezing cold on the floor, and just because sound travels really horrible in this room. So I'm hoping a carpet dampens that sound a bit for the show. But also this Saturday, this Saturday we're going to be at Schuylkill Pride Fest in Schuylkill County, PA, in the United States. So check that out as well. From noon to 6 p.m. we're going to be there hanging out, and we have our booth for Powered by Rainbows, and for Pennsylvania Equality Project. We'll be manning both of those booths. And you can come check us out if you want an entire list of all the locations we're going to be at this summer. Go check out prideclassroom.com and click on tour to find our entire tour schedule. So we'll be there hanging out. We have merchandise available there in person. We're going to have all of our staff there, so you can meet and greet with all of us. And we're also going to have our camera there. So you get to experience what it's like to be on camera and see just how awesome it is to host a TV show for 6 million people worldwide. So that's going to be really cool, so you get to experience that. What will you do for Pride anyway? It's so busy around here moving in plus Pride Month for the TV show, because it's we're moving in 8 days ago, and here we are in Pride Month, so we had to have, 10 episodes ready by the time we even, got here. So we had to record, 10 episodes in advance in our old TV studio, just so that we're prepared for this, because we knew this would take a while. So we're kind of taking it easy right now, every moment we can. Just because it's so crazy. But I will say, to celebrate Pride Month, we are definitely just going out and celebrating with our audience. So we're going on tour for the show. We're going out to celebrate 3 Pride events so far this year. We're hoping to add more. If you want us to come to your city, get in touch with your local Pride event and have them reach out to us and have them bring us in. Or you can talk to your school or your school, your local museum, your local science museum, your local whatever, concert hall, whatever it is. Definitely they can bring us in for an event for the PBR experience. Again, go check out Tour for more information on that on prideclassroom.com. What are your thoughts on big corporations and their pride initiatives? I think, do you know how to celebrate Pride Month without spending money and with homophobic parents? We have an episode coming out on Friday to help you with that. How to celebrate Pride Month while still in the closet. We have a bunch of episodes on our channel on that. Every year we do an episode on how to celebrate Pride Month while closeted. But I will say, you can definitely celebrate Pride without a lot of money. You don't need, a $25,000 TV studio to do it. Rainbow markers, you can do background on your phone or your computer. There's a lot of different options here for that, but those episodes really help. So if you're interested in that, go check out How to Celebrate Pride While Closeted. We have a series on our channel for that specifically, and you can go check that out on our channel by just hitting search after this live stream is over. But getting back to the corporations question, I will say, how do I celebrate Pride while I'm in the closet? Again, that's there. Where was that question at with the corporate? What are your thoughts on big corporations and their pride initiatives? It's an interesting debate because as we go through, we've done episodes on this before of, is it pride or pandering? Are they really here to support our community, or are they just, pandering to our community to earn a buck? In those episodes, we highlight our own show, our own production company behind this, because we want to show you that we're not above these questions, that we are ready to answer any question on this litmus test, right? We did an episode last week, I believe it was, on which store has the best Pride merchandise. Where should you buy from if you're looking to buy Pride merch? And so you have these situations where big corporations like Walmart, Kohl's, Michael's, Spencer's, all these major corporations are supporting LGBTQ by offering Pride merch in their stores. What we've noticed is a couple things. So it's first off, there's two sides to this debate. The first side is, as we go through the generations, years ago, you would have never, ever seen a Pride display at any local store at all back in the 1950s and 1960s, that would have been something, horribly off-brand for many of these companies back in the day. Now, you would have seen your local bookstore doing it for Pride Month. You would have seen a Pride store, for instance, Craig Rodwell, I believe it was, owned an LGBTQ bookstore in New York City. And so for him, it was sort of, I believe it was him. Might have been somebody else. But for those kind of people, this was normal to have a Pride flag in your store, to have, a bunch of LGBTQ resources, books, and a bunch of, Pride merch. That was completely normal for them. But the corporations, these big corporations, it would have been, unheard of for them years ago. Now you see it where it's sort of unheard of for a corporation to not do it for Pride Month. Of course, you're going to have stores like Hobby Lobby and Chick-fil-A who will never do Pride displays in their store because they are horribly homophobic, but you're going to have other corporations like Walmart who have a display. And, you know, it's sort of, like I said, on the one side, we're lucky to have that because that's exposure we didn't have 40, 50 years ago. And so the question became, well, is this just a corporation's way to make money off of us? And I heard a comment this week from one of you who said, basically, should we really complain about this? Because it might turn things. And that's a fair assessment as well. I mean, let's say, for instance, a big corporation supports us just so they can earn a buck, right? Okay, then what happens next, right? So the LGBTQ complains about this for month after month, year after year, and we accuse them of pandering and just trying to earn a buck off of us, right? What happens? So eventually that corporation says, you know what? All this PR nonsense, all this PR debacle we get ourselves into every year isn't worth it, because look at the profits we're making off this. Look at the PR nightmare that we've sort of exposed ourselves to because the community just thinks we're pandering to them. Do we even offer a Pride display next year? And so what we've seen, at least in our experience, is that Walmart, this giant corporation, in at least the stores around us, we've went to like 4 or 5 Walmart stores in the past couple weeks to get items for our house, and we haven't seen one Pride display at all. There is no Pride merchandise available at all in their stores, at least the 5 that we went to. What is there is July 4th Independence Day merchandise already for July in America. In America, there's this whole July 4th celebration. For the rest of the world, it's just any other day. But for us, it's for the United States, it's this big event to celebrate our independence from Great Britain. And so there's already merchandise available and a huge 4 or 5 rack display for Independence Day. And it's sort of as if these stores just skipped over Pride Month. Now, I'm not saying that these corporations don't have Pride displays in other stores. For instance, in San Francisco, you might definitely see a Pride display there right now. But at least in our experience, they sort of got rid of the Pride displays in the stores that we went to. And so the question becomes, did we complain about them pandering so much as a whole community that now Walmart says, you know what, we're not going to have this at all? And that's a legitimate question we have to ask. And so one of our fans this week brought up this great question to us of, what does it matter how long a corporation has supported us as long as they support us now? Because let's say there's a corporation who, supported us just in the past year. This is their first Pride Month that they're ever going to support our community. Because maybe last year they had a different CEO, or this year they finally realized as a board of directors that this is worth it for them, that, this should be something they do as a normal basis. Should that support that's only a year old matter any less than the support from someone who's been supporting us for 50 years? Does that really, should that really be ranked on a scale of 1 to 10 when in truth the support is still there this year, So it's it's this debate of, how much should we really complain about corporations? I will say, though, that sometimes it's sort of two-faced. So you'll have corporations who support the community during Pride Month, and then immediately afterwards, they'll support anti-LGBTQ legislation. They'll support politicians who don't support our community. They'll donate to the campaigns of politicians who obviously are never going to vote in favor of our community. Now, in our community, we have a tendency to look at this and go, okay, how come XYZ Corporation supported, I don't know, what's his name? How come they supported Lindsey Graham or something, who obviously did not vote for LGBTQ rights, How come this big corporation wants our money come Pride Month, but then, lets all that go and supports, a Rand Paul or, Mitch McConnell when they're up for re-election? How can they be so two-faced? And the truth, I think, isn't as clear as we sort of want it to be. I think there's a lot more complexity to this than what we're seeing. And so in our community, we have a tendency to go, oh, how come, this giant corporation is supporting Mitch McConnell, okay? Because he consistently votes against LGBTQ rights. How can we support a corporation who supports Mitch McConnell, right? What we have to realize is Mitch McConnell is much more than just LGBTQ rights. Ender, much more than just an anti-LGBTQ policymaker, right? What we have to realize is Mitch McConnell has consistently, for many, many, many years now in his office, put corporations first and supported tax codes that allowed corporations to just get away with bloody murder and, not pay their fair share in taxes. We've seen Mitch McConnell vote for corporations to take over other corporations and become more monopolies than they should. We've seen Mitch McConnell vote for things that, time and time again benefit major corporations. And so the question becomes, well, is this giant corporation supporting Mitch McConnell because he has anti-LGBTQ policies, or are they supporting him because he votes in favor of major corporations getting tax cuts? So you have to realize every policy maker or every politician that's out there has more than one issue on their plate at the same time, And so truly, we as a show have to look at this and go, okay, are they really trying to just make money off of us and then spend that money on an anti-LGBTQ politician? No. That is not directly linked as our community sometimes makes it out to be. I think it's more about, we have to look at these corporations as multifaceted as they are, because they're looking at this as, hey, we want to make as much money as possible for our shareholders, which is, to be fair, what they are supposed to do, So if they can do that by supporting a certain politician that helps them with their tax breaks, that's what they're going to do. Then on the other side, they just support our community to make money off of our community. And at the same time of that, it also, as much as we might call it pandering, seeing a display in a local store, seeing a Pride display in a local Walmart, let's say, that means a lot to me. Because when I was growing up, I never saw that in my local stores. And so that exposure in our community does actually help, regardless of how much we want to say it doesn't, you know? So I think there is a certain extent of, we have to stop condemning these corporations as much as we are. Now, that's not to say we can't ask these corporations to do certain things, but we have to stop condemning them overall. Because if we condemn them so much, well then you're going to see these corporations just pull their entire displays and they don't really care because they're tired of the backlash, Again, that's not to say we can't ask things out of these corporations. For instance, we can ask a corporation, hey, if you're going to make millions off of our community this entire month of June, it's reasonable to ask you to donate, let's say, 1% or 5% of your profits to an LGBTQ charity like the Trevor Project, AIDS Crisis United, all these amazing charities. It's reasonable to ask you to do that. Because if you're going to want to make money off of us, show us that you support us in some way. That's reasonable. But, again, there are other facets to that large corporation that we have to keep in mind. So, I think when we're looking at corporations, we have to see both sides of it, and sometimes we only see the one side. I will say that. Now, Ghost Silence does bring up another good point here. How come Disney supported DeSantis? Money, tax cuts, probably. Problem is they just got caught in the act. That isn't so direct as what you make it sound like. So DeSantis does support major corporations getting tax cuts. But what you have to understand is that whole Florida situation is a lot more complex than what, the media makes it out to be. There's a reason why when we covered that on our show, we spent 3 hours to cover it, So let's look at that Disney situation. So Disney, you might say, oh, they supported DeSantis. Okay, I absolutely agree. They did support DeSantis. DeSantis did have tax cuts in his policy. He wanted big corporations to make as much money as possible. So it stood to reason why they supported him in his campaign. That stands to reason completely. But when it comes to DeSantis, take the entire Florida Don't Say Gay law out of the equation. Disney themselves had a Don't Say Gay law of their own in their corporation. They told all of their subsidiary companies that they're not allowed to include LGBTQ characters in their films, in their TV shows, and so on and so forth. The only shows they allowed LGBTQ characters on were very minor things like, a show on their Disney Plus platform, or I believe there was one show on their main network compared to the 100 other shows about straight people, like Andy Mack was their one gay character on Disney Channel, so they had these situations where it was rare to find a gay character in a TV show of theirs. But movie-wise, apparently what Pixar, one of Disney's subsidiary companies, so Pixar's is owned by Disney Corporation, right? And Disney told Pixar, apparently, this is from Pixar, right? Pixar said, Disney told us not to include gay characters in our movies, which is a weird rule for them to have. And so it sort of told our community that, we have a corporation here who is trying so hard to sell to straight families that they're trying to erase gay couples out of their shows. And, they don't want to make the homophobes so angry that they stop buying Disney Plus or whatever membership, or stop going to Disney parks, that they're willing to take our characters out of their shows entirely, except for a few rare occurrences. And so Disney had this going on behind the scenes for many, many years, plus they supported DeSantis for corporation purposes, plus, right after it was over, they didn't immediately step up, When it comes to Disney, it was a very complex issue, and so a lot of things happened behind the scenes that the general public never knew about, and the news was making this out to be like, oh, Disney never supported, but the truth is, it's like, okay, there's a lot more to that story than a 90-second news piece, So, right after the Don't Say Gay rule came up, Disney is accused of, not immediately stepping up in front of it and demanding that Florida legislator stop this Don't Say Gay rule. And so immediately you have protesting from Disney employees who are LGBTQ, and you have a bunch of politicians going, Disney couldn't stop us if they tried. Well, truth is, when it came to copyright law, Disney stood up against Florida legislator, and weirdly, they got everything they wanted, When Disney wants something, it turns out they pretty much get it, because they're such a large corporation that they have this kind of influence, And so they could have helped stop the Don't Say Gay law in Florida. They chose not to. But then afterwards, when Disney said, what, we do support LGBTQ rights, because they realized Pride Month was only so far away. And they realized they're putting out their entire Pride event, their entire Pride Month collection of merchandise very, very soon. And so all of a sudden, Disney Corporation says, all of a sudden Disney Corporation says, sorry, homophobe in chat, Disney Corporation says, well, we support the LGBTQ rights, even though we have our own Don't Say Gay rule for our TV shows. And all of a sudden DeSantis and all these other politicians go, well, we need to, what was it, crack down on Disney. And so you had Nazis flying Nazi flags outside of Disney World. You had them covering over the Disney World sign with DeSantis 2024. Really, gay law in Florida is because DeSantis is probably running for president in 2024. Let's just be honest, So, nowadays, the political world, I don't know why we're getting such slower internet here. Shouldn't be having this problem. But nowadays the political world is so much about, let's just do a bigger thing, and let's just be crazier than the last person just so we can get in the news more. And honestly, it's because Trump did it. Like, you had politicians like that for many, many years, just doing the next crazy thing to get in the news tomorrow. And so they like being on the news so much, they're willing to do crazy things like Don't Say Gay laws. And then with the Florida thing, you have to realize, they're like, oh, this is just against kindergartners through third graders, Okay, then how come a high school senior graduating high school at 18 years old was barred from talking about his sexual orientation of being gay at his commencement ceremony, when he, for 18 years of his life, worked his butt off in order to be this star valedictorian of his school. He got all the perfect grades just to be valedictorian, and then is told he's not allowed to talk at his commencement ceremony about his sexual orientation. So if this is truly just about kindergartners through third graders, why is a high school senior being barred from talking? You know, like, it's kind of terrible to see that they're trying to bring in freedom of speech. They're trying to stop books from being taught in school or from being in libraries across America. You know, it's kind of just the dumbest thing that we've tried to do as a nation. Is like, we're already where are we at? Let's just like look at this for a second. So how does America rank in education? The United States ranks 14th in the world in percentage of 25 to 34-year-olds with higher education. So right now we're ranked at 14th in the world when it comes to education. It's like, all right, so we're already behind other countries. 13 other countries are ahead of us right now in education. And our answer for that is, let's ban education. Let's bar teachers from talking about things. Let's take books out of our libraries. Let's ban certain words because they're horrible for our students to hear about. You know, like, the answer to being 14th in the world in education is not by taking things away from our education system. It's putting more books in the hands of teachers. It's the true answer for that is allowing teachers to actually do their jobs. And sadly, our education system is in a again, everything's multifaceted. We have to realize that as a nation. So America right now is in this multifaceted problem where I got banned from a Christian YouTube channel just because I'm bi. Yeah, that sounds like them, honestly. Hi, Professor Pride. Just wanted to come and thank you today for all the help that you've done for the community and for helping me finally come out. You helped us so much. My deepest respect. Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad we can help you. I'm glad we can be here for you and so many others. That's what we're here for. So thanks for being here, and thanks for watching. But yeah, so right now our country has many different problems in America. So truly our education system is lacking. Our teachers are told you already have to do more just to help your students than ever before. We're 14th in the world and we're far behind, you know. So our teachers are being told you have to help our students more and more and more in the same amount of time that you had before. You have to do more than you've ever done before. And then you also have to realize other things in the world are happening at the same time. So these kids are now on social media. And so they're hearing news stories from around the world, and they're asking their history teachers, hey, what about this Russia-Ukraine situation, you know? And so teachers are having to cover current events, which will eventually become huge parts of history, but they're getting asked these questions on a daily basis of, hey, I know we're supposed to be in this class learning about whatever thing in history, but there's current events happening that are way more important to learn about, you know? And so teachers in history classes across America are having to go through and like, it's kind of nice in the position that I'm in to see so many teachers in our comments. So when something happens, I have a network of teachers available to me that tell me what's going on the front lines in schools across America and around the world. So you have teachers that are having to, so you have teachers across the world that are having to teach things about Russia and Ukraine of, let's go back in history and see where that all started in the Soviet Union and why it came to this point, why this war in Russia and Ukraine is happening right now, let's go back and see why that's happening and realize why Russia is trying to take over and invade Ukraine. Then, on top of all of that, nowadays in the United States, goes to silence. I have to head out. Thank you all. Thank you for all you do. Have a great rest of your day. Oh, and happy Pride Month, everyone. Awesome. Thank you so much, Goes to Silence. Thank you for being here, and thank you for that super chat. It means the world to us. So thank you. But I will say on this, nowadays in the United States, the leading cause of death for children is now gun violence. And so it's like teachers are being told, not only do you have to teach way more in the same allotted time as you did before, but now you have to carry a gun on you in some schools. You have to be the protector of your children. You have to be security guards at the same time. Meanwhile, teachers are one of the lowest paid careers options in the country because we severely underpay our teachers for what they do. And it's like, wait a minute. So you're asking literally the people that are in charge of helping us evolve as a country, helping the next generation become smart enough to compete against other countries and compete in the job market in the coming decades. You're asking those teachers to teach more, to do much more work than ever before, to be security guards, put their lives on the line every day to help students survive the classroom, which is something no other country has a problem with. And you're also, because America for some weird reason is refusing to admit that guns are the problem, and I love this whole narrative of the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. No, the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is to take the gun away from the bad guy, not to allow that bad guy to have a gun. Let's be clear. Rightfully so, failing at their jobs because their job description changed. Since the time they became a teacher, our teachers have, their job has increased monumentally. Like when you signed up to, for instance, for a job description, if suddenly, if you were working at a store, right, and you were told you're going to be a cashier, right, then a year later, you're told, hey, you also have to stock the shelves. A year later, you're told, well, you have to be cashier, stock the shelves, and you have to count all the money at the end of the night. Okay, another year later, you're told, well, you have to be the security guard in front of the store, making sure no one steals anything from the store. Plus, you have to be the cashier, stock all the shelves, and you have to count all the money at the end of the day. And now you have to drive the forklift to unload all the big tractor trailers that are coming in, the lorries that are coming in, so that way the merchandise can get from the back room to the floor. Eventually you'd start asking whatever company you're working for a raise. Eventually you'd start saying to them, hey, I'm just one person. Why don't you have 5 different people doing this job? Why are you asking more and more out of me? Meanwhile, you're not willing to pay me any more for my work. And that's sort of what we're doing with teachers right now. So it kind of bothers me. Jeez. All right. Denzel Blue Music, who's a member of ours. Thank you so much for being a member, by the way. Hello, I'm a huge fan from Turkey. As someone from a very homophobic country, your videos provide hope for me. Thank you. Godspeed. Awesome. Well, I'm so glad we get to be here for you, and thank you so much for becoming a member of our channel. If you're not familiar with our channel here, if you're not a member already, it's a great time to bring it up. So thanks for bringing it to our attention. It's Denise. Sorry. I was reading it from far away, okay? To be fair, I'm sorry, okay? Okay. My bad, okay? But, so if you're not familiar with our membership levels, Rainbow Eggheads get to see a bunch of different extra content. You get behind-the-scenes photos, and you get your name listed at the end credits on all of our videos. All of our Pride students get to see behind-the-scenes access and exclusive content, including bloopers and outtakes from every episode of our show. You get to see a bunch of extra content all the time, extra episodes throughout the year. We do a ton for our members over there at Pride Students. You also get your name listed at the end of the credits of all of our videos. And then you also have a brand new membership levels called LGBTQ All-Stars. And All-Stars get to actually see their name at the end of credits. They get behind-the-scenes access and exclusive videos from bloopers and outtakes from every episode. Plus, you also get exclusive discounts on all of our merchandise at pbrmerchstore.com. So every month we release a brand new coupon code so you can get massive discounts on all of our merchandise over there. So you get a huge discount on all of that. So if you're not a member already, consider becoming a member by hitting join down below and get access to all of those amazing perks immediately. So now let's go back here for a second. Question. Yes, all are welcome that aren't LGBTQ phobic. So, the Reverend at an LGBTQ church I go to got us to be the first marchers in the Pride event this year. I carried the bisexual flag. That's awesome. Yes, there are a lot of churches who are becoming more and more accepting of LGBTQ people because they realize, for many different reasons, they have to be. So, first off, no major religion of the world, including Christianity, Hinduism, oh God, what religions were there? I forget. It's been a long day. I'm sorry. But yeah, no major religion of Islam, no major religion of the world considers being LGBTQ a sin. So anyone who... Islam is homophobic in certain areas, but according to their scripture, they're not supposed to be. I will say that. Just like Christianity, it's not supposed to be homophobic. Nowhere in the Bible does it say, the original Bible, does it say that being gay is a sin or being trans is a sin. Nowhere in there does it say that. But suddenly, religions in North America have decided, hey, this is something we can do, and so other countries adopted it. It's horrible. The book was translated. The book was translated years ago, and for some reason, the translators decided to add extra words into their translation for no reason, and just suddenly it made being gay a sin now, and so Roman Catholic Church is like, oh no, gay people, you know? And other Christian churches, other Catholic churches are like, you know, that was never a thing. That was never in there, right? Like, let's go back to the original text. Being gay is not a sin, so we're going to welcome LGBTQ people into our church. And they're doing it for two reasons. Because first off, they want to follow the original Bible instead of the new version. That's not correct. But secondly, they're doing it because they're losing membership. So nowadays, the Roman Catholic Church is losing membership like crazy, and other churches don't want that to happen to them. So they're like, you know what? Rather than discriminating against LGBTQ people, let's accept them. And so that way we're not losing membership over time. So it's kind of interesting, to say the least. Yes, being homophobic is actually a sin. I love the people who are like, well, being LGBTQ has only existed for a couple years. It's only been around since the 1950s. First off, no. Like, that's the main thing. Like, our education system taught us incorrectly. So, in our history books, LGBTQ people were taken out of the history textbook time and time again. For instance, when you learned about the American Revolution, am I a believer in what? Frank, sorry, I'm confused. Am I a believer in religion? I believe that religion exists, yeah. And I'm a believer in, personally, I believe God exists, but he doesn't discriminate against LGBTQ people. So that's my beliefs. But other people have different beliefs. However, progressive Muslims usually support LGBT, although they are seen as heretically by a majority of scholars. Interesting, thank you. Capitol Pride this week. Baltimore Pride starts Monday, and I may go for the latter. That's awesome to know. My first ever Pride event ever was actually Capitol Pride in Washington, D.C. That was my first ever event that I ever went to, with Troye Sivan, as he was the headline performer that year. So that was an amazing Pride. I hope to get there again very, very soon in the coming years. This year we're at smaller prides. Next year we're very much planning on small things. If that can hint at anything. So it's interesting to see our education system taught. Let's just go with one topic here, right? So it's interesting because if you learned about the American Revolutionary War in school, you probably learned that George Washington was the guy that made it happen, right? And he was the guy who was on the front lines. He was on that famous ship crossing the river, and he's the main reason why we won the American Revolutionary War. No, he's not. He was glorified as the hero of the American Revolutionary War. But if you actually do your research, you'll learn two people existed other than him. So George Washington was famously losing the American Revolutionary War. And at the time, he didn't know what to do. So he went to his advisors at the time, Benjamin Franklin, and a few others. And he said to them, hey, we're losing this. How do we turn this around? The British are winning this war. And it's pretty much a done deal. Okay. Well, look. I have noticed a lot more homophobic people on our channel recently. And I think it's just because it's Pride Month. Pride Month brings out all the horrible people of the world. If you're not going to be friendly here in our chat, we're going to get rid of you. It's as simple as that. We did ban Jack now. But when you learn about this, so George Washington reached out to Benjamin Franklin and other advisors and asked them, hey, how do we turn this around? How do we win this war? Because right now we're losing. Then, anyway, you'll get very excited when I delete a homophobe. But anyway, so he goes to them, and Benjamin Franklin suggests two people. The two people were named Baron Friedrich von Steuben, who was a gay man from Prussia, the Prussian military. He was fired from the Prussian military because he was gay, many believe, and he was very good at leading infantrymen. So that means basically people on the front lines. He was very good at leading people into battle. He had very unique and winning tactics on how to direct infantrymen. And a lot of those techniques, I will say, nowadays in the United States military, the United States military still gives out books of their guidebook to every military man or woman or non-binary individual. So nowadays, the tactics that Baron Friedrich von Steuben implemented back in the American Revolutionary War are still in place today. So that's still how our people are learning how to be a good soldier, right? Which is crazy to think that something so long ago can still be implemented nowadays. But he brought in Baron Friedrich von Steuben from Prussia and made him the head general for all of the infantrymen. Then Benjamin Franklin also suggested Casimir Pulaski, who was this fantastic cavalry general. So cavalry, if you're not familiar, is the horses. So if a soldier is on a horse in battle, it's cavalry. And Casimir Pulaski was this fantastic cavalryman general to lead horses into battle and to lead men on horses into battle, right? And so together you had Baron Friedrich von Steuben leading all the men into battle, and you had Casimir Pulaski leading all of the horsemen into battle, right? And all of a sudden the war changed. All of a sudden we started winning the American Revolution. And all of a sudden the British are losing soldiers like crazy, thanks to the tactics these two implemented. And so then what happened, right, is America gained its independence from Britain. And shortly after, this thing called the social purity movement happened. Almost immediately after our country was founded in 1776. Almost immediately, this social purity movement happens in the United States. And things are wiped clean. What I mean by that is, social purity movement starts up and basically says that women are getting raped because they're wearing scandalous clothing that invites men to rape them. They start cracking down on the clothing that women are wearing. They start cracking down on pornography or any sort of adult content. They start cracking down on women who have sex with other women and men who have sex with men. You know, they start cracking down on this, and their answer to that was they created, yes, Jack is gone. But they start creating this thing called the YMCA because they feel like in order to have men stop raping women, let's get all the men together and let's, let them burn all their testosterone off. Let's let them burn all this testosterone off in a healthy environment. Then they realize, hey, we just basically created a place for homosexuals to meet each other and to have sex with one another, So they immediately realize their mistake, but YMCA is still going strong nowadays, and it's still a place for gay men to meet each other. But I will say, so the Social Security movement happened, and they cracked down on all of these books, all of these educational resources, and they try their best to stop any education possible. And so what they did was they start realizing that, the American Revolution was won by Baron Friedrich von Steuben, a gay man, and Casimir Pulaski, an intersex individual. And they pretty much say to themselves, we cannot have the general public know that the American Revolution was won by an intersex and a gay man. We can't let the American public know that. Otherwise, being LGBTQ is going to be normalized in society. They further realized that George Washington himself was gay. George Washington had a wife, but throughout his life, he had many gay lovers behind her back. And it's debatable whether or not she knew that, but he sent all of these letters back and forth between different men, and people started to realize that he was gay. So the Social Purity movement decided they're going to create their own textbooks. And they're going to start teaching how straight and cisgender George Washington was. And all of a sudden, George Washington is credited with winning the American Revolutionary War all on his own. And so it's like, it's this question of, well, why did we let this Social Security movement take over our history books? And the truth was, we didn't really have an answer to women getting raped yet, other than because the men weren't being thrown in prison, for some weird reason. And so the Social Security movement was able to take over our history books and just run away with things. They went so far in this endeavor that they covered over a lot of other shit. So, basically, they covered over the fact that there was gay cavemen, gay pirates. They covered over intersex individuals. They covered over transgender cavemen. At the time, they covered over a pharaoh in Egyptian times who was transgender. They covered over a transgender Roman emperor, empress, I should say. They covered over two higher-ups in the Egyptian Egyptian empire. They covered over two of them because they were a gay couple. They had kids together, and they also were buried together with depictions in their tomb of them standing nose to nose, which is the most romantic depiction that Egyptians had back in the day. So, so they covered over all these people, including Alexander the Great, who was gay. They covered over Abraham Lincoln, who was queer. They covered over all these parts of history in a very targeted effort so that way they can stop men from raping women. Not how you stop men from raping women, by the way. I don't know if y'all know this, but covering over LGBTQ history has nothing to do with men raping women. Because the men raping women are straight men. The gay men are still going to have their own thing, you know? So, really weird. But I will say, I've appeared. I think nowadays we're coming back around to this history and realizing, wow, they really did some damage. And so part of our show, you know, and many other historians that we're trying to get on our show, big things are happening behind the scenes. Anyway, but part of that is the fact that, you know, hey, these people covered over a lot that they didn't want you to know about. Because here's the thing, if you realized that gay cavemen walked the earth, gay pirates roamed the seas, if you realized that there was gay pharaohs and gay you know, higher-ups in the Egyptian culture, if you realized that that George Washington, who founded America, was gay, and the man who won the American Revolutionary War was Baron Friedrich von Steuben, who was gay, if you realized that Abraham Lincoln was queer and he's the guy who freed all the slaves, you know, if you realized all these things together, you'd start to realize, first off, that gay people existed long before 1950, long before the Stonewall riots, and you'd start to realize, hey, I'm completely normal for being gay. The narrative that these people give you is that we didn't exist before 1950 or 1960. The reason why they're trying to convince the world so much that gay people just appeared out of nowhere is because it helps their narrative. If they can convince you that gay people just appeared one day, then it looks like a choice society made, and it looks like a choice we made to be gay. So, if they can prove to you that suddenly gay people just appeared, then it looks like we made this choice. But the truth of the matter is gay people existed from the dawn of humanity in caveman times. And so the truth, the science, the evidence, and the data tells you gay people have always existed. And if gay people always existed, something about being gay must be hereditary. It must be passed through your DNA. It must be something in genetics that makes you gay. And suddenly it's no longer a choice. So they tried to get rid of that narrative completely because that hurts their narrative. Yeah, the straight flag is horrible. It looks more like a prison outfit than anything, honestly. But, so they tried to cover all of this over just so they can hopefully convince you that straight people made this choice to be gay and we just appeared out of nowhere. Well, the truth is we've existed for centuries, since the dawn of humanity, and, you know, here we are, you know, and it's not a choice to be gay. It's weird for homophobic people because nothing backs up their narrative. I've heard homophobes say many different arguments over the years of, oh, it's a sin. Nope. All right, try another. Oh, you just basically appeared out of nowhere. Nope. Try another, you know. It's a choice. Nope, it's in our DNA. Try another tactic, you know. like, consistently, over and over again, their tactics are just so easily seen through. When will LGBTQ discrimination finally be made illegal nationwide? Hopefully soon. The Equality Act is still in the Senate, but they just refuse to vote for it. What's weird to me is like these homophobes, and weirdly we have to listen to them more than the general population because we have to be on the lookout for certain things. But we've heard them basically say that the education system shouldn't be teaching this. And we've heard them say, you know, and it's weird. It's like all the data that's available shows us that if your school teaches about LGBTQ people being normal and valid, your overall GPA scores of your school are better. We know that we have a happier society, we have less discrimination, less bullying, less hate crimes later in life, less murder, less suicide, less depression. The list goes on and on and on. And we've heard these homophobes say, well, LGBTQ people only make up 1% of our population. Nope. That's not a thing. The truth of the matter is, currently in our society, worldwide, LGBTQ people make up 11.7% of the world's population. As generations go on here, if you're familiar with generational names, so there's Gen X, Gen Z, as the generations go on. So in my generation of being 29, 30 years old, 11.7% of my generation is open about being LGBTQ. But when you start talking about the younger generations that are just coming up in society, those who are, let's say, 5 years old to those being 20 years old right now, right? That covers, I think, 2 generations. Let's actually get the actual terms here. The names for generations. Yeah. The GI generation, 1901, who were born in generation 1946 to 1964. Generation X born 1965 to 1980. In those generations, we're seeing a lower percentage of the populace that are open about being LGBTQ. Why? Well, because it was not legal in the United States to be gay until 2003. Not that long ago. Less than 20 years ago. And so for that generation, for those generations, I should say, telling other people you're gay and telling other people that you're trans and so on, it's even at 1%, it's still a significant number. You're right about that. But I will say on this, let's say it's illegal to, I don't know, let's say it's illegal to wear a red shirt, right? I'm just spitballing here, right? An example. Chances are when eventually the law catches up and says, you know what, now it's suddenly okay to wear a red shirt in public, chances are a lot of people are so embedded into that rule that they're going to keep with their old traditions. They're not going to wear a red shirt for the rest of their lifetime. Because for so much of their lifetime, it was illegal to wear that red shirt. So chances are they're never going to buy a red shirt. They're never going to wear a red shirt in public. You know? So all it does is sort of keep those people in the closet and say, you know what, you can be gay, but keep it a secret, right? And there's a reason why people from that generation consistently comment on our videos, reach out to me personally and say, you know what, this is not the way I was raised. I'm gay, but I keep it to myself. There's a reason for that. Because this is all they have ever known, is to keep it a secret, you know? In, let's say, in the millennial generation, born 1981 to 1996, which does include myself, in our generation, we saw a majority of our lifetime, it was legal to be gay and trans, you know? And so in our generation, we're open about our sexual orientation and gender identity more and more. And so in our generation, you're probably talking 11% of our population are open about being our LGBTQ status, right? In Gen Z, or iGen, born 1997 to present, all they've ever known, pretty much, is it being legal. Because even for the people born in 1997, I mean, they were 6 years old when it was suddenly legal to be gay in the United States, you know? In other countries of the world, you're still going to have people be closeted because in their country it's still illegal to be gay. But I'm talking about the United States, at least, right? So in the United States, when they were 6 years old, it suddenly was legal to be gay. And I don't know about you, but I don't remember a lot about my life before I was 6 years old. Very vaguely some things, but for the most part, I don't remember a whole lot, right? So in all of their recorded memories, it's completely fine to be gay, and so it's completely fine to be open about your LGBTQ status. And so what we're seeing in younger generations is 20-30% of their population is open about being LGBTQ and out of the closet to themselves or others. And so as the generations go on here, more and more of our society becomes open about their orientation or their gender identity. And so with that, sure, the average right now has grown. So back in the day, when it was illegal in the United States, not a whole lot of people were open about their sexual orientation or gender identity because it was illegal to do that. Nowadays, you have the younger generations coming up that weren't a part of that old society, and so the average has significantly grown to now being 11.7% of the world's population being open about our LGBTQ status. In the future generations, the more we learn, the more countries decriminalize homosexuality and bisexuality and so on and so forth, the more we're going to see generations be open about their orientation or gender identity. And the more that happens, the higher that percentage raises. So the higher that percentage raises, I mean, you have people like Bill Maher who are making fun of our community and saying, in 2054, everyone's going to be gay. It's like, first off, no one has ever been completely 100% straight. No one has ever been perfectly straight. So to say that suddenly we're going to be all gay one day, it's kind of a dumb statement because you don't know your history. You don't know your science, you know? I would love to debate Bill Maher, but, you know, as our generations grow up, we become more accepting. And with that acceptance, people are more open about themselves because they're more comfortable. And I think what you're going to see in the coming years is our generation, in the millennial generation, born 1981 to 1996. I think as we become parents ourselves in our generation, you're going to see a lot more kids be accepted of their LGBTQ identities, and so you're going to see a lot more of them coming out a lot faster in life, and so the Gen Z and iGen generations are going to have it a lot better, and their numbers are going to raise our overall averages. So it was always dumb of the Social Security movement to try to cover this stuff up, because their narrative to doing so was to stop women from getting raped. It's like, how is stopping myself from being in a relationship with my boyfriend going to stop a woman from getting raped? It's not going to. Like, those two things do not correlate, you know? But these people back in the Social Security movement were like, oh, obviously they're connected somehow, you know? And one can make the very easy argument that by being in a relationship with my boyfriend, I'm monogamous, so I'm only ever going to have sex with my boyfriend and eventually make him my husband. But I'm with him, so, like, why would I go and rape a woman? Like, the argument could be made that by allowing homosexuals and bisexuals to be with their homosexual partners, it prevents rape from happening, because you take people out of the equation. But they're like, no, let's stop homosexuals from being homosexual just to stop women from getting raped. I'm like, what? How in the world do those two things correlate, you know? So yeah, it's kind of stupid, their entire thought process to cover this over, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, so hold on a second, you know, I get you were trying to cover this over, which is dumb on its own, but you honestly thought that we would just go along with it forever and never find out the truth? You honestly thought we would never find the documents that George Washington sent to his gay lover? You honestly thought we would never find those letters? You honestly thought that we would never figure out that Baron Friedrich von Steuben and Casimir Pulaski were involved in the war? Like, you honestly thought that the military would never release the information of who helped them? You honestly thought that, like, and that's why, like, dumb of, like, let's not let gay people in the military, but yet, when you enter the military, you're handed a handbook that was written by a gay man who won the American Revolutionary War for us, and was the sole reason why we have all the freedoms that we have in America. So, like, what? You're seriously going to say, oh yeah, gay people aren't allowed in the military, and let's implement this don't ask, don't tell rule. But here's a handbook from a gay man who helped found our country and helped win our country's freedom. You seriously thought no one would ever notice that? And then there's also this other side of it, like, okay, so let's not let transgender people in the military, but here's Casimir Pulaski for you. Like, did you honestly think we would, like, not look back at history? You know? These people are dumb. Like, the people that implement these don't say gay rules are like, yeah, let's do this. You know, let's implement this rule because this has never gone wrong before. You know, like, honestly, look at some history textbooks before you write legislation. Honestly, it's like, this never goes well for society. And it's so telling what they're trying to do. Like, when you try to ban any form of education and you say you're not allowed to talk about this, right? All it does is dumb down your generation. And so it's pretty telling that these politicians are trying to keep the general population as least smart as they can, as dumb as they can, because it helps them get reelected someday. Because if you're not smart enough to research these candidates, and you're not going to, actually do some genuine research of your own before you enter the ballot box when you vote. Or if you don't know, let's say you don't know how to do that research on your own, then these politicians can sell you any narrative they want. And if they're able to sell you any narrative they want, they can go tell the media, oh, this is what happened, or here's all the good I did, let's not talk about the bad stuff I did, right? And during their election campaigns, they can just keep talking about all the good things, and they're never questioned, The general public isn't asking them any hard questions then, because the general public doesn't know how to research these things and stuff. So it's pretty telling. Anytime a politician says, let's get rid of educational resources, it's pretty telling they're trying to get their constituents to stop asking questions eventually. And so it makes it easier for them to get reelected over and over and over again, compared to the alternative, right? So the alternatives is, let's just teach our kids as much as possible, and hopefully we'll get smarter and smarter as the generations go on. And hopefully one day, they will run for office. Hopefully one day, those kids will become the next politicians of the next generation, and they'll take over and they'll make a better society for us in the future. They'll be able to work out their problems a lot easier. They'll be able to vote a lot smarter. Because if we can vote for the truly best candidate, then we're going to have a great government that works for us, for the people. But if you try to dumb down society, anyone can run. And nowadays in politics, I will say in America at least, I don't know about other countries, but it's sort of, before working at Power of Rainbows, I used to work as a political videographer. So I used to create video commercials for politicians. I still, to this day, do some stuff of that, but we're sort of slowly phasing out of the commercial videography that we do, because we're trying to make Power of Rainbows the one and only thing we're doing right now. Because this is way more important than anything else I've ever done, and I love it more than I've ever loved anything else. So, thanks for being here, Denise. Thank you so much, and thanks for being a member as well. See you later. But I will say on this that years ago I used to be involved with that a lot, and I used to do all this commercial videography, and I used to be in so many backroom meetings with politicians and their PR teams, and time again, a couple things happened you don't realize. So, first off, we pretty much saw a lot of backroom deals happen. For instance, one of the candidates I was working for had information on his opponent. And it was information where it would end the other person's campaign overnight. It was the kind of information that truly the American public needed to hear. But for some, and I was telling the candidate, I'm like, all right, so tomorrow I can go in the office and I'll make a video campaign about that, and I can have it to you by 5 p.m., Like, it was enough for my candidate to win easily, right? End the other person's campaign instantly. And all of a sudden, the candidate I was working for stopped and said, don't go ahead with that ad. Don't do anything. And suddenly, the one that I was working for got a promise of something else later on. So they allowed his opponent to win, who should not have won, and who, again, had something against him that the American public should have known about before hiring him. And all of a sudden, my candidate backed off and purposefully lost the election because he was promised something later. Other times, we were working for a candidate and we were doing a video campaign for someone, and there was this allegation that what we were doing, right? So we were making a video about, so there's candidate A and B. Candidate A is accusing candidate B of doing something absolutely atrocious. But they don't want to be involved. So they pretty much make a super PAC LLC corporation to make this video commercial. And this video commercial goes out against candidate B, accuses candidate B of terrible, terrible things, ends candidate B's campaign literally within a week. And during the filming process for this, we ask the candidate and we ask the candidate's team, okay, so if we're interviewing a couple people who are saying these horrible things about candidate B, and we say, okay, so you pretty much want to make this like a documentary about candidate B being a horrible person, right? So can you send me a link to that news article that you're referring to? Can you send me a copy of that police report that you're talking about in this in your interview? Can you send me a copy of this photo? Can you send me a copy of this video so I can include that video in my commercial for you? No, I can't send that to you. We look up the police report. It doesn't exist. We look up the newspaper article that they're referring to. It doesn't exist. And so this entire campaign, we figure out, is completely bogus. And we figure out that this video we just did for candidate A through this LLC corporation super PAC is suddenly is a blatant lie against candidate B, is completely slanderous. But we realize it after the video already went out. And luckily we have clauses in our contracts that protect us and say, like, if you say something in a political ad that slanders against your opponent, we're not responsible at all. We didn't know, you know? So luckily we're protected here, but at the same time of, like, that's how you're going to win your campaign, by just lying and throwing slander against your opponent, you know? And so immediately we stopped working for candidate A and no longer work for that candidate ever again. But there are so many backroom things that happen that are just blatant lies. And candidates pulling out of things on purpose because they're promised something later. There are so many campaigns that they run unopposed because basically the Republican National Convention and the Democratic National Convention say, you know, we'll allow you to win this district over here and we're not going to run a candidate against you because in this other part of the country, you let us run it unopposed, you know? And it's very telling what happens behind the scenes. It's horrifying what, like, in my life, I should have never known half the things I know. But I was involved in these backroom meetings where I'm saying to the candidate, like, hey, you can win if you run this. And they're just like, nope, I'm not going to, because I'm promised something else later, you know, if I just stay silent right now. And yeah, the American public deserves to know this, but not right now. Not before they hire him. What? No, the American public deserves to know that no matter what, you know? Or let's just lie as much as possible, you know? And it's like, that's not the way to win a campaign. And sadly, these things correlate because these politicians realized all these backroom deals happen far more than what I was involved in the political spectrum. And then on the other side of it, you have them trying to dumb America down and try to get rid of all the education so that way people stop learning how to research their candidates. Because have you ever noticed how in the past couple generations, we've stopped teaching our elementary kids how to do research articles, how to do research in general that's credible research. And all of a sudden now, with the evolution of the internet, people can find an article that supports whatever they want to find. I'm lucky in the fact that my 30 team members behind the show, 30 people work here, by the way. 30 people work at Power Brainbows. But I'm very lucky in the fact that all 30 of us have a set of rules that says that we have to abide by the facts and evidence, no matter if that agrees with our narrative or not, right? And if we're covering a topic on our show, there might be some facts that don't agree with what we want to say, you know? And so we have to present all the facts evenly, even if it doesn't fit our motive, you know? So we're lucky in the fact that we have some of the best researchers and writers in the country. We're lucky for the fact that we have former reporters that worked at major news outlets that ended up working here because we're able to get the credible information. Like, there's a reason why departments of education trust us, and that's because we have so many credible researchers on our team that need to get things right no matter what. We need to stick to the facts and evidence. But in younger generations, they're not taught how to research things near as much. They're not taught as much on how to find credible outlets instead of just finding the information you want to find. And so those two things, I think personally, in my own personal opinion here, they correlate heavily. Of politicians want to lie to you as much as possible, and on the other side, these politicians are controlling the education system, trying to make it so it's as hard as possible to research anything. And by that fact alone, if it's hard for you to learn how to research anything credible, it's hard for you to ask hard questions against your politicians eventually. And so they can stay in power longer. So yes, education in the USA is so intentionally bad. But you know what? Let's hand teachers a gun and say, let's protect our children, you know? Because that's the answer. Let's hand out more guns. Because the problem is obviously a lack of guns. Even though in the United States we have more guns than people, you know? But sure. I think people should be taught how to think, not what to think. Yeah, that's a fair statement. I mean, on our show, it sometimes does get blurred because we are here to provide validity to the LGBTQ, but at the same time, we're here to have you ask questions. And the whole purpose of some of our episodes is to show you, that we're not above those questions. Like, the reason why we provide sources for all of our videos in the description of every episode is because we want you to question us. Don't just watch an episode of ours and say, you know what, because some guy on the internet said it, it's obviously true. No, I want you to check my sources. They're there for a reason. My team and I have done a lot of research and a lot of work for months for many of these episodes to make sure what we're saying is 100% accurate. So I'm saying, here's my sources, go check them. Go find out on your own the exact stuff we did. Go find the full context of this story. So yes, question me as an educator as well. Anytime you're a teacher in class, if you're in school right now, well, not right now because you probably are in your summer session right now, but if your teacher says something in school, ask questions. Ask, how do you know that? Ask, okay, tell me more about that, Don't just trust what anyone says to you as 100% fact. Because everyone could have their own personal narrative here and their own personal agenda to get through, right? For instance, let's say a teacher is homophobic, right? They're not going to teach you how George Washington was gay because it doesn't fit their narrative. And so asking questions is a good thing. And I think you're right about that. I mean, nowadays we teach our children to not ask questions. And there's this old, I don't know how familiar y'all are with it, but there's this old phrase of, there's never a dumb question, right? But nowadays, it's as if you ask too many questions and you're labeled as the guy that's like, you're labeled as the person of, oh, that's the 20 questions kid that questions everything. Or in class or something, or even in the workspace, if you ask too many questions, all of a sudden, the person on the other end or your peers start laughing at you of like, oh my God, I wanted to get out of class early today and you're asking all these questions. Shut up already. Like, stop asking questions. That's sort of the narrative in America right now of stop asking questions, And, it's funny because when you really start to dive into things and when you're a researcher, you're a writer, when you're a reporter, your job is asking hard questions. I worked in that industry for many years as a reporter, and it's hard, especially when these people don't want to answer your questions. These people are trained for many years by very talented people on how to avoid questions, which is not something you should be taught. Not something if you're a servant of the people, paid by the people, why is part of your training on how to avoid questions? Like, that's dumb to me. Like, I will say, if I ever become a politician, I realize this clip might come back to haunt me, but if I'm ever a politician, if I ever run for any office at all, ask me any question you would like. You know why? Because my salary as a politician is from the American public, or is from the public funding, right? I'm working for the people. Why should I be above answering any questions from the people? Like, my employer is the public, so my boss should be able to ask me any questions that they want to ask me. It's kind of telling whenever someone says, "Oh, I don't need to answer that question." No, you do. In any other job, let's say you're working in a grocery store, and your boss comes over to you and says, "Hey, why did you put that pallet of stuff over here instead of over here? What have you been doing for the past half an hour of your shift?" You have to answer that question. You have to answer those questions. Otherwise, you might get in real trouble. You might get fired for that, you know? Whereas a politician can avoid that question entirely and not really explain what they did for the past half an hour of their shift, you know? They can go on vacations, they can, you know, they can take time off, they can, you know, abstain from votes, they can do all these things, and they can hold up the voting, and they can make sure that a bill never makes it to the floor, you know? Come on, you know? Like, that's not what your job is. And you have to answer the American people for that, you know? It's kind of telling. Anytime someone tries to avoid a question, it's like, okay, so you're not really fit for this position, you know? What are your opinions on GRSM versus LGBTQ+? Do you think one is more inclusive than the other, or do you not really mind? I'm just interested in what people have to say. What is GRSM? Sorry, 3 screens here. GRSM is an acronym that stands for Gender, Romantic, and Sexual Minorities. That's a good... Wait. Queer Undefined. A crowd-sourced LGBT plus dictionary. That's a cool resource. I'm going to have to remember that now. But, no. I would think it's more inclusive. Well, see, okay, so here's the debate I would have on it, right? So, LGBTQIA. It stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, and asexual, aromantic, right? So, already, you cover a lot of people in that acronym, you know? So when you're talking about the L and the G, you're talking about yeah, Tom does bring up a good point. I hate the idea of being called a minority. I just hate that word. Yeah, we're not a minority. We're a majority, by the way. But realistically, yeah, we're probably a majority. But because minority makes it seem like, you know, we're small and we're weak, you know, compared to majority, which sounds strong, you know. So that's a fair point, honestly. So good job to Tom on that one. But see, L and G stand for L and G stand for the lesbians who are sexually, romantically, and, you know, furthermore, attracted to other people. So it already stands for romantic attraction and not just sexual attraction. The B does stand for bisexual, so that is a very targeted bisexual community instead of biromantic community. As far as if you were to compare GRSM to L and G, sure. GRSM is more inclusive. Sorry. Really confused. If you were to compare GRSM to the L and the G of LGBTQ+, right, then it's pretty much the same because L and G mean the same thing as romantically, sexual, so on and so forth, right? The B, sure, GRSM has an advantage over that because it stands for romantic, so biromantic instead of just bisexual. Transgender, sure, in GRSM it stands for gender, so okay. GRSM has an equal acceptance compared to LGBT plus, but I don't know. I think GRSM. It's I've never heard it before, so that tells you how new that term is. But and I've worked in this industry, full time, 50 hours a week for the past 5 years. So you can tell how little I've heard that word if I just heard it now. But I would say that GRSM is about the same, if not less than inclusive as LGBTQ+, because first off, everyone knows LGBT+. Everyone sort of is used to using that acronym. I think probably, I'm just guessing here, I'm not saying for certain, I'm probably going to say GRSM was created just because people made fun of the LGBT+ acronym and called it the Alphabet Mafia so much that we just created a new acronym to replace it. But yeah, calling it sexual minorities makes it sound... that makes it sound bad instead of sounding good. So, yeah, I'd definitely say that LGBTQ+ is a lot better to use. But, again, I'm new to GRSM, so I can't, completely comment on this yet. Just keep that in mind. There's a Kinsey scale for hetero-homosexual gradients. A proposed replacement was the purple-red scale of 2 axes, perhaps the various independent axes of identity, attraction, roles, etc. could. I'm familiar with the Kinsey scale. The Kinsey scale is very old and outdated. It's very uninclusive. I will say that. So the Kinsey scale only defined a certain number of people, when in truth there's 7 spectrums of orientation. Kinsey scale only accounted for 1, and only said that you are sexually attracted to someone on this 1 scale, when in truth there's 7 scales that you need to be, that everyone is defined under, right? There's 7 scales of orientation on romantic, aesthetic, physical, sexual, mental, emotional, there's a lot of scales that you can be defined on orientation alone. And then there's perceived gender and actual gender. So it's like, the Kinsey scale is very old and we don't use it for a reason nowadays. Back in the day, it was basically... back in the day, the Kinsey scale was the new way to help people understand our community better, but it's like, the more you really research biology, science, and really understand how love works, the more you get away from the Kinsey scale and you have to start using, an actual definition of what love means and what your gender is. So you have to start using, 9 spectrums instead of 1 scale. And I mean, think about it this way. So realistically, these homophobes think that, there's 7-point-something billion people on Earth, and they really thought everyone on Earth was the same. Like, no! Obviously, people are going to love differently. People are going to do different things. People, honestly, these people thought, we all want different jobs. We all want different lives. We all want different things in our life. We all want different size houses. We all want different color. We all have different favorite colors. We all we're all different in every other way, but suddenly when it comes to love, we're all straight. Come on, that's just dumb. First off. Secondly, they thought, oh yeah, everyone's either a boy or a girl. Like, no, come on, that's dumb. You honestly thought 7 billion people on Earth are just boy or girl. Like, that's a very big stretch, And so nowadays, when we define things, we define things under the 7 spectrums of orientation and 2 spectrums of gender. And they're spectrums. So there's millions upon millions of ways you can define yourself on every one of those 9 scales or spectrums. And because of how many millions of ways you can define yourself, that's a lot more inclusive. Suddenly, 7 billion people on Earth sounds a lot more reasonable to define yourself under those 9 spectrums, So, I will say that. But we are going on 2 hours now. Wow. This is a longer live stream than I thought I would have. So anyway, how y'all doing? It's officially been 1 year that I've been bi. Well, Jade, how old are you? Because that's how long you've been bi. It's just you've been open about being bi for the past year. Because coming out is a journey, people. And it's okay to not come out immediately right after you realize who you are. It's okay to wait a second or two because, it may not be safe for you to come out right then and there. Happy first Pride, if you're... Yes. Jamie, what are your opinions on xenogenders? There isn't much xenogender acceptance, unfortunately. Apologies for asking again. No worries there. If I didn't get to your question, perfectly fine to ask again. I realize this is a live stream, and so I'm not going to get to everything right away. Is pedophilia a sexuality? Technically, I mean, that's hard to define. That is genuinely hard to answer. I guess technically it is a sexuality, but it is not an accepted one by the LGBTQ. Pedophiles try to define their ways as maps. They came up with their own flag now. They tried their best to associate themselves with the LGBTQ plus because they realize the LGBTQ plus is gaining acceptance. And so if they can attach themselves to our coattails, then hopefully they'll, in their opinions, hopefully they'll gain acceptance too. But they're not. Every time they try to attach themselves to our community in some way, shape, or form, the LGBTQ plus community has said, no, go F yourself. You're not a part of our community. You'll never be a part of our community. And it's sad to see pedophiles trying their best to ride our coattails. So it's not an accepted sexuality, in our community, it is not a accepted sexuality in general population. So I guess in some ways, LGBT people and straight people have something in common. We all pretty much universally hate pedophiles. But as far as your other question goes, the other question before, how can I come out again if I don't feel like I was accepted? I've done that 3 times now online. There's 3 coming out videos. I just kept coming out as different things, and I just realized myself better. You learn about yourself better and better as time goes on. But xenogenders, let's go back to that really quick. I'm sorry, I get distracted. There's a lot of you. Xenogenders are overlooked in society and in the LGBTQ+, and I think that's for a reason. I think as we see, as society slowly accepts transgender people, first off, it should be accepting of transgender people a lot easier than it has been accepting. But the world is just coming around now to realizing, oh my God, transgender people exist, and these and there's millions of genders out there, not just 2, you know. And so in our society, I think you see a lot of people, you know, who are transphobic still, and I think there's a scale of acceptance that's happening right now in front of our eyes. And so for the general public that's straight, cisgender, I think you're seeing them right now go, you know what? I love so-and-so just like Matt loves Michael, you know? And so when it comes to how accepted gay people are in society, we're still not at 100%. We're still not equal in every way legally. We're still not gained the freedom to marry each other as we want to marry under the law. Right now, it's just a court ruling from the Supreme Court. So in America, gay people and bisexual people still do not have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as we are promised under the Declaration of Independence. But I think we are ahead in the acceptance scale compared to transgender people. I don't know why necessarily that is. I don't know why that says, you know what, people can love different people, but you being a different gender is suddenly, you know, something I don't accept. It's weird. Like, how can someone say they accept me for loving another man, but at the same, which is scientific, how we love each other. I keep pointing to this direction as if Michael's there, but Michael's office is right there. That's where he works. So it's like, just so you understand. It's like some people accept, some people will follow the science and accept me for loving Michael. But then when the science tells them that, you know, someone can be a different gender than the one they are born, suddenly they stop listening to science, and I don't necessarily understand that. I don't understand why people will follow science until a certain point and then stop. But I think when it comes to xenogenders, xenogender individuals are further behind transgender individuals on that scale of acceptance. Because think about it this way, right? So it's as if I told you, for lack of a better way to understand it, right? It's as if I told you, again, with that example of the red shirt, of, let's say I said to you, well, nowadays you have to accept people who wear red shirts in public. And there are going to be some people out there who go, no, I still don't accept people that wear red shirts. But eventually, people are going to accept other people for wearing a red shirt. But now I told you, by the way, you have to accept people that wear orange shirts. Okay, I guess we'll accept them too. Well, now I'm telling you have to accept people that wear yellow shirts. Wow, you're asking a lot out of us, aren't you? You know? And so there are going to be people here who eventually stop accepting the next thing. But here's the confusing part for me, right? So homophobic and transphobic people will act like this is a slippery slope, that we keep asking them to accept the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. The truth is, we've only ever asked for the same thing over and over again. Equality. We're asking for equal protection under the law and in society. That's what we're asking for. For all of us. Since day one of, the first riot at Compton cafeteria riots, and then the Stonewall riots, and then the fight for equal rights for LGBTQIA plus people, since day one, we've been together on this. Since day one, we've asked for acceptance under the law and in society of lesbians, gays, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, aromantic, asexual, xenogenders, so on and so forth. We've always asked for everything all at once. The fact that society is finally coming around to accepting gay people somewhat, it's good. But it's like, I think the hard part for, let me jump down to your questions below here. I think what some people in society are trying to do is get rid of the majority. Because, put it this way, right? So, the LGBTQ community is made up of, I think it's 40-some% bisexuals, 19%, let me get to that actual study so I can cite the actual numbers here. So when it comes to our numbers, right, 40% of the LGBTQ population is made up of bisexuals, 36% is gay men, 19% is lesbians, and 5% is transgender individuals. So basically, homophobes realize these numbers too. As much as they don't want to admit that they know these numbers, right? And so let's say, for instance, just for example here, okay? Let's say for instance, all of a sudden, science was very much manipulated to be homophobic and transphobic by the social purity movement we mentioned before. But let's say, for instance, again, just for example's sake here, that society accepted sexual orientations completely. Well, then all the bisexuals, 40%, 36% of gay men, and 19% of lesbians have what they asked for. And they have equality, right? In our example, let's just, again, for hypotheticals here, right? Let's say suddenly every sexual orientation in the LGBTQ plus is accepted completely by society. Homophobes not the general homophobic person, but the higher ups in their movement, in the homophobic and transphobic movement, of these hate groups that have tons more data than you think they have, they might realize that if they bite the bullet and allow bisexuals, gay men, and lesbians to be accepted, if they allow sexual orientations to be accepted, suddenly 40% of 40% of bisexuals have what they've been asking for. 36% of gay men have what they've been asking for. 19% of lesbians have what they've been asking for, and they have acceptance. So suddenly, 95% of the LGBTQ community stops asking for things because they have what they've been asking for, right? So now, transgender individuals still don't have what they've been asking for, but they no longer have the other 95% of the community to keep on these politicians, to keep asking for equality, because the 95% already got what they wanted, and now they're out of the fight, Sure, our community can choose to stick with them throughout the entire journey, but there's going to be a lot of bisexuals, gay men, and lesbians who say, you know what, we are accepted now, let's let it go, and we have what we've been asking for. And so what I think might be happening is these hateful groups might be seeing the numbers and realizing that if they slack off and allow sexual orientations to be accepted, then they're going to have an easier fight against transgender individuals. And so I think it might be a possibility that transgender individuals are behind on that acceptance scale because these hateful groups are allowing the majority of our community to be accepted more, because they realize it's going to be a hard fight, and they realize if they allow the majority to go, they're going to be able to concentrate on transgender and xenogender individuals more. How is the data derived? Are you talking about the study I'm mentioning? We've mentioned it a couple times on the show before. It's a Pew Research study at pewresearch.org. pewresearch.org. It's a study of a survey of LGBTQ Americans, is that survey I'm referencing. But that's just one of many, many studies that we reference all the time. But yeah, it's derived from asking our community about themselves. So here's the and I'll get back to that. That's a great question, Rodman. Rod Marsim. Great question. I'll get back to that in just a second. Sort of what you have to realize for our show is we have a lot more data than these studies. So these studies were done by very credible outlets that don't have stake in the game. Pew Research Center is not funded by LGBT people, so it's more likely to be accurate in our numbers here, in the numbers that they provide. Whereas someone might not trust a study from Human Rights Campaign because it's funded by, gay people or whatever, or just like you should not trust. Here's the thing. Human Rights Campaign is a very credible outlet, and they provide their anecdotal evidence. They provide all of their evidence and their data to say what they say. So it's weird. It's like, so you have these organizations like Human Rights Campaign and Trevor Project, who are funded by LGBTQ people, but they also provide tons of data and tons of evidence to back up their numbers, to show you that, yes, this is credible information. You have independent organizations like Pew Research Center who publish their evidence to show you this is accurate, this was not funded by anyone, anyone in the community, either side. LGBT plus is not accepted in every major religion of the world, but it is not a sin in any major religion of the world. There's a difference there. So, Roman Catholic Church, it is not a sin according to their religion to be gay, but it is not accepted in their church because their church chooses to be homophobic and chooses to go against their Bible. The Roman Catholic Church chooses to go against their own book, their own Bible. And if you believe in Allah, then Allah does completely accept the LGBTQ community, but individual religions do not. Individual pastors or priests or leaders of the church do not, and they choose to go against the Bibles or teachings of their own church in order to be hateful. That's just pure and simple. But yeah, so the independent organizations put out their findings and evidence on their studies, and then you see the homophobic groups like Family Research Council and others who are horrible in their ways. Family Research Council and Focus on the Family, who sound like they're all about family rights. They sound like they'd be great organizations, but they're horrible in truth. They're worded that way on purpose. So Family Research Council and Focus on the Family, they run a majority of the conversion therapy camps in America, and they push more kids to suicide than any other organization. But yet, in their studies and their findings and their stuff, when they publish a study, weirdly, they don't publish any of their evidence to back their claims. Weirdly, all of this evidence is just in the wind, and you have to go find it on your own, Weird. Huh. So it's like, we trust the Human Rights Campaign, we trust the Trevor Project, we trust Pew Research Center, we trust these people because they publish their evidence. We don't just read an article and trust it because it says it. We actually go, one of the things we do for all of our episodes before we cite any of our sources is we check, like, we'll go through this report of LGBT Americans and we'll read all of their evidence, we'll read all of their survey results, we'll go to all of their sources and figure out where they found this information, how they found this information. And it takes a lot of work to research individual articles and reports instead of just finding a report that says what we want it to say, We can't just do that. We have to find an article, we have to find a report, we have to research it, make sure it's accurate, we have to find their sources, make sure that those sources are accurate. And so there's a reason why most episodes you see on our show take anywhere between 2 to 3 months in order to make that episode happen. There's a reason for that, and that's because we do hard research on things. But weirdly, these homophobic groups and hateful groups like Focus on the Family publish a report with no sources at all. Does it matter at what age you start questioning your sexuality, gender identity? Nope. there are genuinely 1 or 2-year-olds who already start questioning things and already know who they are. We did a study on transgender people, and we realized that a lot of trans people started to realize they were trans at a very young age of 3 or 4 years old, but didn't really know what to call it yet. So a major part of our job as educators is not just saying, okay, so, hey, this thing that you've been feeling for so many years now, turns out there's a word that describes that, and here's what that word is. Sorry, guys. Anyway, let's go back to the other question. Sorry, it's pronounced Rod Mar Sim. Sorry. I'm bad at pronunciation. When was the LGBT acronym decided in the letter order? So, what you may not realize is it used to be GBTQ acronym, right? When the Stonewall riots happened in 1969 in America, and LGBT people started fighting back against police and started, fighting for our equal rights and stuff like that. With the Compton cafeteria riots years before that, throughout the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, we started really fighting back against this, and we finally gained legal status in 2003. That's how long it took. Like 30 fucking years, But when all of that was happening, and the AIDS crisis was happening, where there was this disease that was affecting straight and gay people just as much, but killing gay people at higher rates. There was a president in America called Ronald Reagan, who is easily one of the worst presidents in U.S. history. Probably the second worst president in U.S. history, with only being surpassed slightly by Donald Trump of being the worst. But Ronald Reagan decided not to invest any money into AIDS research to end the HIV and AIDS epidemic in America. He decided that AIDS and death was a worthy punishment for being gay. And so he decided not to invest any money into researching a cure or researching the cause of HIV and AIDS. And so a lot of people died as a result of that decision. Throughout that, lesbians stood by gay people and stood by gay men throughout that epidemic and fought for research to be done. Lesbians, even though they weren't being affected as much by it, they were standing by and saying, you know what, we need to research this, we need to find a cure. And because of their heroic actions and advocacy back then, the community decided to add L for lesbian as part of the acronym and chose to put L before everything else because lesbians did so much advocacy work to end, to research HIV and AIDS that they deserve to be first. And so that's where that sort of came from and why it's LGBTQ. And it's kind of it's kind of weird. What? Gamers Tree says, why isn't there a suicide hotline in the bottom right corner? There is. It's right there. Trevor Lifeline is an LGBTQ lifeline if you're feeling depressed or suicidal or anything like that. You can simply call that number or text 678-678. Text START to 678-678. Or you can go to trevorchat.org and start chatting online with a trained counselor, a licensed and trained counselor from Trevor Project to help you overcome that depression and overcome those suicidal thoughts. So we always have that in the bottom right corner of our screen because we know people might need that resource at any given time. Yeah, so the weird part was, so Ronald Reagan decided this was not important to research at all. and I'm just gonna, just to tell you the story of how this all came about, right? So, HIV and AIDS, this man went to the doctors, I believe somewhere in California, and described what was happening. And later this would be called AIDS, right? But at the time, all these gay men were coming to doctors in California and surrounding areas and saying you can, acceptance from at least one adult can decrease the risk of LGBTQ plus attempting suicide by 40%. You're completely right in that, Trevor Project. It's alarming, the numbers this year from the Trevor Project study on that, of just one person can help so many people, but at the same time, one person can also hurt so many people. That's why we choose to be on the side of love and acceptance. Weird. Weird how being on the right side of history allows you to have a large platform. And to actually, like what you do for a living. Hi, Matt. I would like to thank you a lot for making me realize I'm non-binary and helping the LGBT plus community find out who they are. Your show really helped me and made me more confident about who I am. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad we can be here for you as a resource, and I'm glad we can be here for so many others. Oh, you're from Germany. Oh, awesome. I'm glad you're here. I did not know we had German fans in the chat. All right. So basically, sorry, I was going to grab a drink there when I started reading. So, oh God, it's hot in here. Sorry. I'm dying. It's hot in here. So they went, a bunch of gay men started going to doctors across California, and after a little bit, they started calling it the gay disease, because it was only really happening with gay males, right? Well, after a while, after Ronald Reagan stopped being in office, by this time a lot of gay males died from HIV and AIDS. They realized through a little bit of research that AIDS was being caused by HIV. So, in order to stop AIDS from, killing you, and AIDS-related causes to kill you, what was sort of the way trans men problem is always feeling hot? I'm not trans, so I'm just not. Not that I don't support trans, but I just, yeah. So, what what was happening was that right after Ronald Reagan got out of office, um, you saw a little bit of research being done on this, and suddenly, right away, they found that, you know, AIDS and AIDS-related causes were being caused. Well, uh, it was being caused by HIV. So just a minimal amount of research on this told them that, hey, AIDS is being caused by HIV. Then they realized in order to stop AIDS and AIDS-related causes from killing people, we really needed to stop HIV from being transmitted. Oh, okay. Temperature. Okay. Sorry. I get confused. There's so many homophobes in chat. I'm just like, ah. Okay. So they realized they needed to stop HIV from being transmitted in order to stop AIDS later on in that process, right? There's a lot of trolls because it's Pride Month, and Pride Month brings out the homophobes. And they're like, oh, let's create another YouTube account just to bash on LGBT people. Anyway, and they really don't like us because we're educating people. There's a reason why in the past, 2-3 weeks, we've spent $5,000 on security measures. There's a reason why we took a bunch of training in the past 2 weeks on how to protect ourselves just in case something happens. There's a reason why we're not allowed to publish what city we're even in right now, and all you can see is this behind me or a rainbow behind my other set. There's a reason why you can't see out the window of our building. There's a reason why we had to rent this property instead of buying it. There's a reason why there's a bunch of other security measures in place to protect ourselves because we don't want people to fucking know who we are or where we're at, okay? That reason is homophobic people don't like education so much that they've threatened to kill us before, so. Anyway. Yeah, trolls go way too far. So, this is our month, go home, homophobes. So anyway, what ends up happening is after they do this research, after Ronald Reagan gets out of office, they do some research, they find this out, and they start figuring out ways to stop transmitting HIV so much. Now, as time goes on, they start realizing this isn't just a gay male thing. They start realizing that straight men also have sex with gay men on the side. They start realizing that all these straight men that they talk about aren't so straight. They start realizing that gay men sometimes came home to their straight wives. They start realizing that, gay men and straight people shared needles in different places of the country. And they start realizing that Reagan started the evangelical movement too. It was bad. I'm glad I wasn't around at that time. Yeah, Reagan was terrible. Weird how the Republicans are like, our savior, our Jesus is Reagan. Mm-hmm. And weird how a lot of candidates now are on the Republican side are like, Reagan was my hero, and it's like, yeah, that tells me a lot about you, more than you think it does. The fact that Reagan's your hero is a problem. The fact that Reagan was a hero for anyone, it's very telling of who you are. It's like saying, it's like seeing a red hat in public now with, Make America Great Again on it. It's like, it's weird how seeing that from far away tells me everything I need to know about you as a person, and I haven't even spoken 2 words to you yet, It tells me that you're a horrible person and you're not too smart to research candidates before an election. So it tells me a lot of things about you before I ever talk to you in person. Just wearing a MAGA hat in public. Or Saudi Arabia is pretty terrible to LGBT people. So not them for the win. Bye, guys. Thanks for being with us. So, right after Ronald Reagan, they do these pieces of research. They realize it's being caused by HIV. They end up where they figure out this is starting to affect straight people. All of a sudden, millions of dollars go into research. Now, I cannot legally say that straight people were dying, so now it's something of a public health crisis. But all of a sudden, millions of dollars of research was done on this. So, all of a sudden, millions of dollars of research starts being poured into HIV research because it's starting to affect straight cisgender people now. People that had to get it somehow, and people that weren't so straight, but whatever you want to say, you know? So nowadays, it's something where, even my uncle, Jeffrey Blake, he died in 1992 from AIDS-related causes, and he wasn't around to see the cure of HIV and AIDS. I think there's treatable ways now for HIV that you can be HIV positive but not transmittable. There's medications you can take to prevent yourself from getting it if you're sexually active, as well as wearing condoms during intercourse. But back in the day, it was sort of like, in Reagan era, he considered it a worthy punishment for being gay is to be dead, and so that's why nowadays, because of the social purity movement, we didn't have sexual education in schools, and that sort of went away over the years. But nowadays, even in the schools that are taught sexual education, they are not being taught that gay people need to use condoms as well to protect themselves, and they're not taught that STIs are transmitted with gay people just as much. So it's pretty. HIV and AIDS now, weirdly enough, okay, I think it was in 2021, a study was published, a report was published by a credible outlet, that was saying that more straight cisgender people are being transmitted, and more straight and cisgender people are getting and dying from HIV and AIDS than gay people at this point. Because our community has learned, our community has realized this is a very real thing that we need to overcome, and we need to take steps to prevent, and the straight community is like, no, that's a gay thing. Because Ronald Reagan taught the country and taught the world, oh, this is the gay disease, and he kept calling it the gay disease. He kept saying how this is only for gay people, and then straight people kept dying anyway, and it's like, but wait a minute, if it's just a gay thing, then how come straight people are getting it, And he could not fathom this, but in today's society, there are so many people who think, oh, only gay people can get that, because Ronald Reagan said that years ago, so they stop worrying about it, and they don't take steps to prevent that, and so they end up getting it more than gay people now. So it's kind of reversed at this point, and so it's sad that we had to wait this long for funding to actually research this well. But at the very least, at least we are researching it now, and finding cures and finding treatments that are medical advancements. It's sad that we have to wait for straight people to be affected by something in order for us to get research funding, but, whatever. I hate the laws being passed in Texas as well. Texas is kind of... There are a lot of LGBTQ people in Texas. Politicians know this more than they want to admit. Texas is an interesting state overall. Texas tried to secede from the nation years ago, along with the Confederacy, and weirdly, they're still allowed to do what they're doing. So, if you look at different things, for instance, when we look at Texas's power system, electrical system, right? Wait, Roman Catholic, who's wicked? Texas? Yeah, Texas is wicked. Greg Abbott is a wicked person. I'll give you that. But when we look at when we look at Texas, they have their own power system that's separate from the rest of the countries. And then, there was that power thing that happened, I think it was like a year and a half, 2 years ago now, where their power system failed massively, and they had a huge freeze across the state, and billions of dollars of damage was done, people's lives were lost, all because they weren't on the same maybe we should stop electing celebrities as president, but all because they wanted to be on a separate electrical system from the rest of the country. They had this huge failure, and the rest of the country couldn't come to their help to give them power because they weren't on the same system. They disconnected themselves from the rest of the country, so when something bad happens, we can't help them, But then they had these transphobic laws, rules being passed. Greg Abbott, their governor, said that any parent or medical professional who helps transgender people should be charged with criminal actions and child abuse, right? So a federal judge steps in and says, no, Greg Abbott, you're fucking stupid. Stop, You can't do that legally. Trans people have the right to get health care if they need it, You can't do this. You can't charge parents with child abuse for helping their children. You can't do that. So Greg Abbott's lawyers are like, no, we can discriminate as much as we want. We're from Texas. Like, okay, well, no you can't, not legally. But whatever, So this federal judge stops Greg Abbott from doing this. Greg Abbott decides to do it anyway and starts charging parents with child abuse. ACLU steps in and says, all right, we'll take that case. We'll defend these parents to the end. You really want to challenge us, Greg Abbott? You really want to challenge ACLU? And so all of a sudden Greg Abbott's like a little bit scared, even though he doesn't want to admit it, I know my Texas accent is probably atrocious, I'm sorry. But it's Greg Abbott. It's like, oh no, we're above the law here. We don't need to listen to the federal government. I know it's horrible. Anyway, weirdly, I used to be a country music singer. If that tells you anything. of why I got out of country music. But I will say that, like, all of a sudden he got scared of ACLU. And the Texas government website suddenly, without any warning, got rid of all of their suicide prevention hotline resources. They got rid of every LGBTQ resource on their entire government website overnight. They got rid of all of their suicide prevention and depression hotlines and resources overnight. So Greg Abbott pretty much showed all of his cards. It wasn't about protecting the children. It wasn't about making sure that these children, don't get this health care. It wasn't about, because if you're really going to charge parents with child abuse, then your narrative that you're trying to sell people is that, that getting this health care would be child abuse. And so you're trying to prevent abuse of children. That's what Greg Abbott's narrative was he was trying to prevent abuse of children. But, sadly for him, he got rid of all of the suicide prevention hotlines and resources. So if it's really about stopping the abuse, you know full well, by doing this action and by implementing these rules and trying to implement these rules, you're going to cause people to have higher rates of depression. This is seen time and time again. Trevor Project surveys keep telling us that every time one of these homophobic or transphobic rules or laws are passed in any state, suddenly in that state, we see higher rates of depression and suicide in that area. So it's pretty telling that Greg Abbott knew, as well as we do, that by implementing this rule, it was going to cause higher rates of depression and suicide in his state. And then all of a sudden, he gets rid of all of the depression and suicide prevention resources. So he showed all of his cards. He showed us that what he truly wanted was for kids to kill themselves. He wanted a bunch of kids to be depressed, and he wanted this to happen this way. It was very telling, and it was horrible to watch in real time. Luckily, organizations stepped in to help with that and to help prevent depression and suicide, but it was expensive and it was a long process. And the excuse of, quote, protecting the children is widely used to promote a number of causes, mostly because it's extremely effective. That's true. If we look at one of the major things happening right now is Roe v. Wade. If you're familiar with that case, Roe v. Wade is about abortion, right? Now, for years and years and years and years and years, our community has had things at our Pride events about, please stand with us for pro-choice. Please help us ensure Roe v. Wade is upheld, And I never understood why. As much research as I do on the show, as many team members as I have, I never really understood why. Why does our community, who's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, and asexual, why do we care so much about Roe v. Wade? Why do we care so much about abortion? To be fair, all right, fine. We can adopt the children instead. So, if anything, right, our community in theory should be on the side of, keep the baby, bring it to term, and then we'll adopt. We'll adopt that child, you know? Because our community wants to adopt children and be parents and grow our families, you know? So if anything, we should be on that side, right? But then you... All right, I think we're back. Can someone tell me if we're back? Sorry. All right. So, when you start researching Roe v. Wade, all of a sudden, it becomes clear. Because for decades now, evangelical churches and all churches and Republicans have sort of gotten behind this horse of protect kids' lives and, you know, don't support Roe v. Wade and we should make abortion illegal and all these talking points, right? For decades now, all we've been hearing is protect the children, ban abortion, right? That's all we've been hearing. Everything. All these advertisements, everything should be... It was all about protecting the children, right? Now, you can argue all you want to with these Republicans of, okay, so you're here to protect the children before they're born. But once they're born, what about the mass shootings in America? What about mass shootings in schools? Are you protecting the children then? Are you doing everything you can to protect children once they're in school? Are you doing everything you can to protect children who are going hungry in this country from and starving because they're not given enough food or formula? Are you doing everything you can to protect children who are gay from discrimination, from bullying, from suicide, from all these different issues? Are you doing everything you can? Do you only care about them before they're born? Once they're born, doesn't matter. That's sort of been our question to Republicans over the years. Because it does seem like they've only cared about children before they were born. Once they're born, who cares? But, on the other side of that, why has this been a talking point? Why Republicans value quantity over quality? You're completely right about that. Insert creative username here, $2. Thank you so much for the super chat, by the way. We love that. And it goes to helping us create more LGBT education in the future. So thank you so much. I love that. I love how much you guys support us. So, going back to the topic, why has Roe v. Wade become such a major issue for Republicans? What made them spend billions of dollars on advertising over the years? What made them spend all that money convincing us that Roe v. Wade was bad, right? They don't just spend all this money for nothing. Why would they go to that length and that expense to do? Just to convince us of a court case. Why would they do all that? Well, turns out, when you actually do some research here, Roe v. Wade, if it is overturned by the Supreme Court, immediately allows all 50 states and U.S. territories to have a lot more power. Suddenly, an individual state could have a rule or law that overrides a federal rule or law. Suddenly, it takes a lot of power away from the federal government and gives it to the individual states. That's something the Republicans have been wanting for just generations now. Republicans want a smaller government. They want a more local government. And that might sound appealing to some people of, I want my town council to do things that help my community more. I want my town council to have more power to help my community, right? I don't want, I shouldn't need to petition the federal government to put a park in across town. I shouldn't need my federal government to approve of a pothole being repaired on my street, you know? I shouldn't need the federal government to approve of a light bulb being replaced on a street light, you know? I'm back now. I would suggest reloading the page. But there should be no need to petition my federal government to replace a light bulb down the street, you know? But, and that's sort of been the Republicans' narrative, you know, there's, get the local government to have more power. And that might sound appealing. But there's other issues which the federal government should control. For instance, no matter where you go in the country, your marriage should be just as valid in Pennsylvania as it is in Ohio. So, when I go across state lines to do something, when I go across state lines into New York to work or whatever, for a day, my marriage should be just as valid across that state line as it is here. If we decide to go on vacation to Las Vegas, Nevada, my marriage with Michael should eventually be just as valid there on vacation as it is here. So there are certain things that the federal government should have power over. But Roe v. Wade doesn't allow that to happen. Roe v. Wade immediately, if it is overturned, would immediately give more power to the states, and individual states will be able to decide everything. Individual states will be able to decide whether your marriage is valid, whether you get the health care you need. Literally everything is given more power to the local government, to your state government. And the issue, I'll get back to my statement in a second. Madman731, $5, found this channel on the first day of Pride Month, and it is amazing the stuff you do. I can't just not support it. Thanks for helping us feel loved. Well, we love you being here. We're so glad that you found our channel and you found this LGBTQ safe space online here at Powered Rainbows. We're here to help. We have 580 episodes on our channel to help you learn more about our community and learn more about yourself. So check them out as much as you want. We love you being here, so thanks for joining us. And feel free to ask any questions in the comments. We're always here to help. So I also try to respond to as many comments as possible normally on every video, so if you have a question, feel free to ask it. I'm always here to help. I have 30 team members here behind the show that help us well on that, so definitely ask us anything you want or suggest topics for new episodes. We're always trying to help as much as possible. So we try to create an LGBTQ safe space and also a more interactive space than any other channel here on YouTube. So definitely be on the lookout for that as well. And know that you're probably going to be answered. Or at least we're going to try to. We have thousands of comments a day, but we try to get back as many as possible. Timeless Droid, I can't believe what you had to go through with Facebook. What do we have to go through with Facebook? My opinion on, but thank you so much for the super chat, Timeless Droid. Also, my opinion on xenogenders is they're completely valid. It's just, it's going to take a while longer to accept them in the general society, unfortunately. But, okay, so, anyway, getting back to what I was saying. When we got doxxed. I'm sorry, yeah. That's pretty terrible. Yeah. That was not a fun time. That's why we're in a new city now and why we're not publishing what city that is or anything about our location. The most you'll see on this show or on this channel nowadays is like pictures of the inside of our house. Um, but video wise, I think the most you'll ever see is what's inside this room. Because we can't show you anything more. The more we show you, the easier it is for homophobic and transphobic people to find us, and we just don't want that. So you'll probably never ever see the outside of this place until we move out of this place, years from now. So, I try to be as kind as possible. They doxed me. They published my old address on a neo-Nazi website with a bunch of Nazis, and said, "Go after them, and go shoot them up, and go." This was 2-3 years ago now. 2 years ago probably. They did this, and they published my address, and they said my old address before we moved, and they said go after him and burn his house down and all this other stuff. And then we immediately contacted the FBI. The FBI found out who it was and charged the individual now with, hacking into our system. And the state government started to look into him. Turns out the person who did it was not just a Nazi, but he had child pornography on his computer. He ended up where he pretended to be a registered nurse in a COVID ward for COVID-19, and they're still investigating how many people died as a result of his actions, of not really knowing what he was doing, and him faking being a registered nurse. He made a fake cop car and pulled people over and had people send checks for tickets that he wrote to his personal home address, and he had hacked into the 911 call center, and they they found out he hacked into a 911 emergency call center, took emergency calls, and no one ever responded to these crimes because he's the one that took the call, and he's not an actual operator, so he didn't actually send anyone to help. So there's a lot of people that don't like him right now, but he was locked up for a little bit, and I haven't heard anything since he's been locked up. I know the list of charges for this guy is a mile long, though. So, there's that. Anyway, moving on. Back to our story. So, what was I even talking? Jeez. Oh my god. Yeah. So, oh my god, this, casino top 1, best casino bonus. Jeez, they are freaking spam like crazy on live streams, aren't they? But anyway, there's a reason why only 4 or 5 people in the whole world know where we live right now. Know we're here. And there's a reason why we have protections. So, but right after that happened, we contacted the FBI, and the FBI sent. First off, sorry, yeah, we were talking about Roe v. Wade. The FBI sent trucks outside of our old house to look over us. They had a satellite that was aimed at our house for a while, and I remember I was going out of the house to go to work one day. I used to work for a TV station, and I was going to work for the day as a reporter and as a cameraman, and the FBI called me, and they're like, "Hey, don't leave your house yet. There's a suspicious car outside." And I'm like, "Okay, that's a little weird." Turns out it was just a pizza delivery guy that was lost. But anyway, it was interesting. So, turns out the FBI took down his entire website now, and has possession of everything that he's ever done. So that was fun. It was fun to see him get the justice he deserved and get arrested. So that was kind of nice. Anyway, Roe v. Wade. So they've been wanting individual states to have more power for a long, long time. Because think about it like this, right? How many billions of dollars does it cost to get a president elected? How hard is it to get representatives and senators elected across the country? And there are so many things that are stalled in the Senate or stalled in the House of Representatives in the United States because they have this thing called a filibuster, where you need, instead of just a simple majority, 51 votes to get what you want out of 51 out of 100, that's a majority, you know? Instead of that, you now need 60-some votes to get the majority, which is weird, you know? Because of the filibuster. And so almost nothing is ever passed by the U.S. federal government, unless it's very universal, you know? And so for years they've been fighting this system in the federal government, years and years and years. But then they realized, hey, we can just make this a state issue. And so if we invest a load of money into Roe v. Wade, which allows the states to regain all of the power, well, suddenly what? Okay, so why is the zoophilia thingy in the thumbnail? It's not. Zoophilia is not a thing that the LGBTQ or we support. It's just like pedophilia. We don't support it at all. Please do some research. The thing in the thumbnail is our logo. It's a rainbow flag for the LGBTQ community. It is a trans rights flag because we want to show that we support the trans community as much as possible. And it is a paw print, which stands for the furry fandom, and the pup tribe, neither of which has to do anything with the zoophilia community. So, not at all. And if you wonder about the pup community or the furry community, we have a video called Ownership in a Relationship that explains that in a lot better detail. That'll help you. So, yeah, I think someone is very confused as well. Anyway, so they basically said, well, if we invest a ton of money into getting power back to the states, two things sort of happen. First off, the Republicans' narrative of gaining a smaller government, a more powerful smaller government, is better. It is enacted. So states now have a bunch more power than the federal government has. And that's not always a good thing. The good thing would be, you have a federal system that should regulate some things, and you have states who should regulate other things. So states should mandate, okay, so this is what we're going to do with state roads, but federal government should say, you know what, when it comes to LGBTQ rights, we should have a federal law for that. When it comes to how people are paid on minimum wages, or when it comes to health care in our country, when it comes to how people are, how we interact with other countries, that should be a federal thing, And so these states are saying, and with Roe v. Wade, they want individual power to every state. Now, okay, Why? The Republicans will claim in their advertising that it's because your local government knows better about your individual needs locally than the federal government. And you know what? That's fair. That is fair. Your local government, your local borough council probably knows what you need locally better than Washington, D.C. But can it actually do that? No. Can it do that without federal funding? No, hell no. But I will say here, suddenly you give a bunch of power to local. What happens? What is the end result? Republicans claim that, yeah, individual states, yada, 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 right? It's better to have local power, whatever. They'll say that. What actually does happen, though? Well, what actually happens is you create zones. And this is something that major political analysts have sort of pointed out now, but it's sad because we have to deal with it. So basically, when it comes to any issue, there are people that are going to agree with it and people that are disagreeing with it, right? So states like Texas want all the power to themselves. And pretty much their mentality is, well, if you want to be LGBTQ, if you are LGBTQ, move somewhere else. Move somewhere that accepts you. And so now you're going to have a bunch of Texas LGBTQ people who see a local government that is not very accepting of them, that has all the power, and federal government doesn't have power over them anymore. So now they're going to feel like they have to move to some place like San Francisco or to New York, where the state government does accept them more. And so you're going to see neighborhoods that used to be a thing of a safe place for LGBTQ people to live freely. You're going to see those states become neighborhoods again. And that's what they want. They want LGBTQ people to move to certain areas of the country where they feel safe, like California, New York, so on and so forth, right? They want LGBT people to move to those areas because they don't want them in their state. So they say, you know what? Go to this other place. We are not welcome here anymore. Well, sadly, there are racists in our country still who do the same thing on that side. So there are going to be states who try to push African Americans and Chinese Americans and so on and so forth to other areas of the country. Go to this other state that accepts you, don't stay here. That's pretty much Texas and Florida and Tennessee and Alabama and Georgia. It's sort of their mentality of they've invested a lot of money into getting the power back. So as soon as they get the power back, their mentality is, well, if you don't feel accepted here, go somewhere else. Go to a safe space in the country. Go to California or New York. Go to these places that you'll be accepted. So we're going to see over the course of time a migration, a move of people to better areas of the country. And that's sort of what the Republicans want, to a certain extent. But what happens next is what they want even more. It really is a slippery slope here of opening Roe v. Wade. It's like, okay, so give states more power, what happens next? What happens when the states have too much power and the federal government doesn't have enough power? First off, you're going to see the environment taking a hit, because, the federal government EPA regulations are not hefty enough anymore, and states are overriding them. You're going to see a bunch more racism, a bunch more anti-LGBTQ discrimination. You're not going to be safe in certain states because that state decides that your marriage isn't valid anymore, or your gender isn't valid anymore, even though it is valid. But this migration is going to happen, and I think, political analysts have pretty much blown the whistle on this, that's what they really want. Because if that migration happens, if LGBTQ people move to California and New York, or safe spaces across the country that they create, like a gayborhood in Philadelphia, right? Suddenly it's a lot easier for them, for Republicans, to get control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Because, well, if your state was on the fence before, between voting red or blue, and if you get rid of half of the voters on the blue side from your state, well then it's easier for you to vote to get your candidate elected. If suddenly, if your state was part of this electoral college that we have, and you're a flyover state like Alabama, let's say, just for instance here. Let's say you're in Alabama, and you're trying to vote for president, right? Well, suddenly, as far as the Senate goes, if all the LGBT people, all the minorities leave Alabama and they move somewhere else, and they move to a state like Texas, they move to a state like California or New York. Well, now, as far as the Senate goes, California still only gets 2 senators. New York only gets 2 senators. Alabama still has 2 senators. So now, your very Republican state has the same number of senators as a state that has triple your population. Which, I don't know how the hell that's fair. But, in the House of Representatives, you're going to have a lot of red areas. You're going to have a lot of, and very minimal blue areas. So now, you take control over the House of Representatives too. And because of a very weird electoral college system, you can very easily gain the presidency too. So, Joan is right. It is another method of gerrymandering. This Roe v. Wade fight is another method of gerrymandering. It's very easy to tell where they're going with it. And sadly, we're still in this system. We're still trying to figure out what their plan was. It's terrible that, when did Roe v. Wade happen? When was Roe? January 22nd, 1973. 1973. They've been working on this for 49 years? 49 years they've been working on this. And we're just now, as a party, or as a community, starting to realize what they did 50 years ago. They had 50 years to work on this, and we're just catching up with it now, right? And even for people like me who have been researching this for many, many years, and I've been going to Pride events for many years, and I've been trying to figure out, why has Roe v. Wade been such a major topic up for discussion, and why has Roe v. Wade been such a number one issue for the LGBTQ community? I've been trying to figure out, why have we been such pro-choice over the years? Like, regardless how you feel about how women should have control over their own bodies, regardless how you feel about that issue, right? Why has the LGBTQ community why have we been such advocates for it? Why have we put ourselves in the middle of this abortion debate? Well, it's because a lot smarter people than I have figured out that Roe v. Wade is truly the fight of all fights. There was an organization who published, the list of communities that Roe v. Wade would hurt if it was overturned, and the top of that list was LGBTQ, and women were very, very low on that list. And people have been like, but Roe v. Wade is about abortion. It's like, they make it seem like it was about abortion. And because it's easier okay, so I'll put it this way, right? This has been the Republican way for many, many years. Advertise that it's about children. Advertise it's about protecting the kids out there, protecting the children, right? It's not about protecting children. Because think about this debate. If I asked you, do you care about unborn children? Do you care about the lives of children? Obviously, your answer would be, yeah, I care about children's lives. I care about unborn children. I care about their life, Because otherwise I sound like a horrible person, right? But that's the narrative that they've been selling you for 50 years now is, do you care about children? Do you care about children's lives? They've been selling you this bill of goods for 50 years. Meanwhile, on the other side, keep in mind, they've been responsible for the deaths of how many kids now? They've put forward legislation that allowed people to get guns easier, and now the leading cause of death for children is guns? And they've been putting forward legislation that pushes LGBTQ kids to suicide and depression. They've been putting forward legislation that prevents people from knowing how racist of a country we had. And so nowadays we're seeing protests happening outside of schools, that literally kids of schools are protesting outside with giant posters reading the N-word outside. We have major problems in our country. Major problems. And we've been sold a bill of goods that they're here to help protect the kids. But they're not. They don't care about kids' lives once they're born. What made you think that these people, these politicians, cared about kids' lives before they were born? Because everything so far, once they're born, they don't care at all, And they've been trying their best to take every bit of education out of these kids' hands as possible. So what made you think that they were actually trying to help kids before they were born? Well, that's what they told you. And sadly, that bill of goods is null and void. Because now it's all coming out of the woodwork. Because they never really cared about kids' lives at all. They cared about the power being given to the states. That way it's easier for them to get more and more power and it's easier for them to gerrymander the hell out of this country. So, anyway. So, any more questions before we head out? Any more questions about LGBTQ Pride Month or the community itself? I'm here for another couple minutes, so yeah. But let's hope that Roe v. Wade isn't overturned. Let's just pray. I saw your video about Mississippi trying to ban LGBTQ books. They try to do all of that to protect kids, but they don't ban guns in school. Yeah, it's pretty telling. It is pretty, you can see right through all of their crap, you know? And it's not just, I don't mean to, like, harsh on Republicans here. Like, Democrats, it's sad because it's like Democrats had power of the executive branch with the president. They had power with the House and the Senate all at the same time. And they had enough votes to overcome the filibuster. And they chose not to enact any laws for gun regulation. They chose not to do anything. They chose not to enact the Equality Act. They chose not to help our community. They chose not to protect kids in schools. Like, they're just as at fault here, but at the very least, they've been sort of helping us a little bit from time to time. The Republicans have been lying to us that they're here to protect the kids, and then they just don't care. But I'm lesbian, and my mom, dad didn't believe me. Any advice? You don't need to convince someone that you are the sexual orientation or gender identity that you truly are. If you tell them something and they don't believe you, well, that's on them. It is their fault for not believing you. You don't have to spend years of your life trying to convince someone of who you truly are. Just be yourself. Be a queen. Because, baby, you were born this way. Anyway, y'all don't get my old jokes, okay? I'm from a different generation. That was the weirdest joke you'll hear all night. Anyway, oh, hey, they have a nice bark, but they don't really do anything. It is incredibly frustrating watching this country turn into a theocracy. $10 super chat. Thank you so much for that. I love when super chats come in, so thank you so much for that. Because it helps us so much in providing more education for LGBTQ topics. So I love that. I mean, sort of like the Republicans have sold themselves. Here's the difference between the parties in America. Democrats have a lot of bark and no bite. There's a lot of people who are like, yeah, let's stand up to change. Let's do it. And then when things don't happen immediately, that, that fight sort of just dies off, and, it's only sustained for so long. Republicans don't have so much of a go-get-'em attitude. They're more about sticking behind the scenes and doing back deals and, trying to get more and more power so that they can eventually do other things. And, that's why we see things like Mitch McConnell. So Mitch McConnell has been in control of the Senate for many, many years over his career. He has blocked a lot of legislation in the Senate, so it never got a vote, which is something that should not happen, by the way. I'm a firm believer that every single bill, no matter what it is, if it is proposed to the Senate by any senator, you should have a certain number of days set that bill gets a vote, no matter what. Because then things would actually get done in the country. Regardless of whether I agree with them or not, every single bill should get a vote, no matter what. It should not be... Truly, we're in a country that, you elect all of your senators. Every state elects 2 senators to the Senate. And then for some reason, one man, Mitch McConnell, or whoever has control of the Senate at that time, he alone, or they alone, get to decide which bills actually get a vote on the floor and actually get to go through. No, that's not fair at all. Regardless of if your bill passes or fails, you should have a certain number of days for it to get a vote, no matter what. That way we know exactly where people stand on every single issue. Not, oh, that ain't going to pass, so let's not bring it forward yet. No, bring it forward. If it fails, it fails, And so that's why things aren't getting done, because one person gets to decide what actually becomes law. And so for many years, we saw Mitch McConnell blocking how much legislation, and then the American public starts to accuse and say, how come all of the major rules that are enacted in our country are happening at the Supreme Court level? How come the Supreme Court and 9 people get to decide the rules in our country? Well, it's because our Senate and House of Representatives aren't doing their jobs and actually passing bills. And how come, and while we've all been concentrated on that fight, we've all been sort of brainwashed into thinking, 9 people get to decide what rules or laws are in this country, and not even the people we elect. We elect these senators and representatives, and they don't pass these bills. They're not doing anything. They're stalling. They're going super slow with everything, And so, as a country, we blame our representatives. We blame our senators. Meanwhile, Mitch McConnell and the Republicans have played the long game. And they blocked enough things in their departments and blocked enough people in the Supreme Court that they eventually gained power over the Supreme Court. And so we've all been concentrated on Mitch McConnell being this guy who blocks all of this stuff from happening in the Senate. But Mitch McConnell wasn't worried about those things in the Senate. He was worried about getting enough people in the Supreme Court to gain control of the Supreme Court. And he did that with Donald Trump. He did that with Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh. He finally gained Republican control in the Supreme Court. That's what his true goal was for 30, 40 years now. And we haven't been seeing it. That's the way that Republicans sort of act. Democrats are all bark, but as time goes on, less and less bite. Republicans are very much people who are in it for the long game, and they will wait 40, 50 years to get what they want. So that's sort of how the political system in America works. So with that, I think we talked enough about politics. I hope you guys are having a great Pride Month. Thank you to all of our Super Chat donors. Oh God, I can't even see all of you. There's a lot of you who did Super Chats today. Let's get to that, because I want to quickly, oh God, it's so weird. Our internet here is weird. Sorry. So first I want to thank all of our members of the channel. So, oh God. Hi. So I want to thank all of our Rainbow Eggheads: John Blood, Lacey Reed, Vic T. Campbell, Shelley Monroe, Mikey B, Music, Movies, and More, Rose Elizabeth Evergreen, Norman W, Jessica Chestnut, Monica Angel, Just a Demon Boy, Here's What I See, and Here's How I See the World, and our brand new member of Rainbow Eggheads, Matt Best. Thank you for becoming a member. Also, thank you to our Pride students who get exclusive access behind the scenes of every single video. Richard Smith, Paula Johnson-Chambers, Paige Narst, and Evan, thank you so much for becoming members of our channel on the Pride student level. They also get exclusive access behind the scenes of all of our videos and bloopers and outtakes. On our LGBTQ All-Stars level, we have Andrew the Avatar and Denise Blue Music, who as well as all of those perks already I mentioned, they get exclusive discounts on all of our merchandise at pbrmerchstore.com. I also want to thank all of our Super Chat donors here today. See all, let's go to that next. Oh, there's a lot of you today. All right, so the Robin in the Oak, Ghost of Silence, insert creative username here, the Madman 731, Timeless Droid, and again, insert creative username here. Thank you so much for your Super Chat donations here today and helping us provide even more LGBTQ education in the future. I sincerely thank you from the bottom of my heart. You've been awesome for your donations and for everything. You all are amazing people for that, and you help us make this TV show what it is, and all of our team members, you allow us to create so much better content as a result of your donations. So thank you. The Madman 731. That's me. Yes, that's you. Thank you. I love when people are still on the chat at the very end so you can get your credits and stuff like that. I sincerely thank you from the bottom of my heart. This would not be what it is without all of you. When will we feel better again? I hope that you feel better now. I mean, I know we talked about a lot of bad things on the show here today, but also, you know, it is Pride Month, and know that you have a safe space here at Power Brainbows on YouTube. We have an advanced moderation company that has been hired to help us moderate our comments this month, and YouTube graciously donated that to our channel. Huge thank you to YouTube for highlighting us this month in their advertisements, and huge thank you to YouTube for hiring a company to help our channel moderate our comments and make this an LGBTQ safe space this month, more than we normally have with our 30-member team. Huge thank you to them for donating that to our channel and helping us create this safe space. Huge thank you to them. That helps way more than they know. But I will say, as we wrap up today, it has been an amazing month so far. I'm hoping that you guys are having a fantastic time on the other side of things and seeing all of our content. We have brand new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of Pride Month. You'll see brand new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time from us. You'll also see just today, we had a video published of 25 tips to celebrate Pride Month from home. Friday of this week, we're going to have another episode on 21 more tips to celebrate Pride Month while closeted. So there's a lot more content coming to you guys in the coming month here, and then brand new episodes for the rest of the year every Friday. So we have a lot of content coming to you guys shortly. Plus, in this brand new studio space, we are planning on doing a lot more. So we're planning on doing a lot more interviews with a lot more guest stars. We're planning on doing a lot bigger names interviews to come here. So if we're covering a topic, we're fully planning on having a lot more bigger names to offer advice on those topics, and a lot more to come. You're going to see a lot of great content coming from this new studio because we have a lot better of a studio. We've spent about 6 months figuring out every single detail of this studio. So you're going to see a lot bigger and better content because we've planned for it. Our old studio was very old and dilapidated. It was just old. This is the most advanced we can possibly afford on our budget and almost the best money that can buy. So we're so excited to show you all what we have in store coming in the next couple months here. So you'll be seeing episodes in the coming weeks from our old studio, but then, once July hits, you're going to see brand new stuff from this place. So we're super excited for that. Plus, we're going to have meetups with all of you as well. So we're super, super excited. But as always, if you want to support our education and providing LGBTQ education every single week here, you can become a member by hitting join down below. And you can also go to pbrmerchstore.com right now and get brand new Pride Collection merchandise over there. We have a ton of brand new designs as of this month that are available, and you can get exclusive discounts if you become an LGBTQ All-Star of our channel. But over there at pbrmerchstore.com, you have brand new designs and a whole bunch of great merchandise that is only going to be available for the next couple weeks. Once our Pride season 2022 is over, a lot of those designs go away forever. So get yours now while supplies last, and happy Pride Month to all of you. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video, comment down below your LGBTQ friendly thoughts, hit that rainbow subscribe button so you don't miss out on new episodes of our show, and once we hit 100,000 subscribers, we have a brand new, huge video for you guys that we already have made up, including videos that you've all made for us and sent in for us. Trans rights are human rights, of course. Of course. Trans rights are very, very important. I mean, the fact that that needs to be said is a problem with society, The human rights are human rights. Come on, But as always, I'm your host, Professor Pride. Have a gay day, everyone. And I will see you every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right here on Powered Rainbows. So hit that rainbow subscribe button. Hit it. So wait. I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to wait for you to hit that rainbow subscribe button down below. If your subscribe button is still red, that's a problem. Hit it. If you hit the rainbow subscribe, if you hit the subscribe button, it turns from red to rainbow. Wouldn't that be cool? I'm just saying, YouTube, YouTube, you're awesome, but you can do that, right? Just for this channel. That'd be awesome, right? Because it's Powered Rainbows thing. Ha, ha, ha. Matt thinks of cool things. So, but I'm just saying, that'd be so cool. There is a way to turn your subscribe button rainbow. We have a video of how to turn your subscribe button rainbow on this channel, so do we have more live from you? I'm going away today because I have to go buy carpets. Because buying a house, renting an apartment with brand new stuff in it is expensive. But, it's going to be nice when it's all done. Michael and I are going to have a good life together. But you can learn how to make your subscribe button rainbow if you want. Just research that on our channel, how to turn your subscribe button rainbow. We have over 580 episodes on our channel. We probably have talked about it before. So go check that out. Go check out all of our 580 other episodes. And enjoy your Pride Month, everyone. Yeah. So, if you're not already subscribed, I've waited long enough. You should have hit the rainbow subscribe button right now. You can do a carpet vlog. At the very end, I'm just going to do a little house tour and be like, here's this room, But, insert creative name. Thank you so much for everything. But Thank you all for joining us here today. As always, I'm your host, Professor Pride. Have a very gay day, everyone. Trans rights matter, trans lives matter, and bisexual for now. Love you all. Happy Pride. See you Friday. Oh, and we're probably going to be doing like live streams once a week, probably. I'm hoping. Of Pride Month. Only Pride Month. I'm hoping. Don't hold me to that. Just, bye for now.